Oh wait, no longer greatness has arrived. Welcome to episode 299 of The Trophy Room, a PlayStation podcast made by the players for the players. I'm your host, Joseph, aka Mr. Badbit, and it is here where me and my best friend Kyle talk about the latest, the greatest in all things PlayStation. Of course, this week, we're chatting about the Geoff Keighley Game Award nominees. We're going back to the oldest house and destroying the hiss in the near future. Geralt in a tub on a PS5 this December. Ooh-wee. Our weekly Will Call of Duty still come to PlayStation, exhausting discourse, and so much more. But with all that said, with all that out of the way, the greatest co-host, whoever is, whoever will be, Mr. Kyle Stevenson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing much better now that I have this Snapple Air prickly pear and peach white tea.
They still
it's
make
delicious.
Those? They still make
they brought it. They brought them back. They have fire, air, and I believe water. Because back in the day,
back in the 90s.
Oh yeah, no, hold on, wind. That'd be weird if it was wind. I think it's wind or air. I think it's called air. No, this is air. I'm confused.
Sounds like you're talking about an Avatar: The Last Airbender sponsorship. Right? So,
which apparently is they have like their Pandora Frosted Flakes. I think I saw out in the wild.
That's right. They're great.
Or at least James Cameron is trying to make it. Everyone say that it's great.
Yeah. Whoa! You got something against Avatar?
I saw it once in the theater back when it came out, and I was okay.
Huh. Exactly the way I feel about it.
It's okay.
Wow.
I'm excited to see it on the big screen. The new one. It's going to look real good.
The Way of the Water. Yeah. All right.
But,
wow.
Goodness.
So you're like Snapple, Air.
Yeah, whatever the
Earth,
element,
Wind,
the
and
other
Fire,
third one.
But Avatar, Way of the Water now.
Yeah, no.
Do you think brands are just absolutely ran out of ideas? Because they're just like, let's just go back to the 90s. Simpler time.
A little bit, but also I'm kind of happy because I miss a lot of that stuff from back in the day.
Couldn't be good for you because remember I think it was one of one of it was called
different.
Rain. And I'm like,
yes. Oh, maybe that's the third one. Maybe it's Rain that's back.
I'm like, oh god.
Well, Kyle, hold on though. Does it taste different because the innocence of youth is gone, or because they've changed the formula?
No, very, very clearly 45% less sugar. That's why it tastes a little bit different.
I was trying to be
still
introspective
really
for a second. Have you changed, or has the Snapple changed?
No, the Snapple has changed.
They talk about how styles of fashion come back around every so often years.
Yeah.
So that's all that's happening with marketing. Marketing is just like, okay, we're going back to the 90s for our marketing craze. So, nostalgia's always in.
I saw some guy on TikTok rollerblading in Jenkos with a Super Nintendo in his back pocket. So anything's possible these days.
Hot damn. And that lovely voice you just heard is Brett over from Triangle Squared. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I know that we've had a couple of listeners who we share a sizable chunk of our audience, it would appear. And I've heard a lot about you guys. I've listened to little snippets in here and there. I saw your God of War bit. It was hilarious.
So sorry.
So glad that you gave the bit. You did it, and I appreciate you.
Someone at my job, literally today, she's just like, I saw your podcast. And my literal reply was, oh God, which one? Luckily wasn't last week. But yeah, man, we share quite a few folks that love your show and ours. Of course, we both cover PlayStation, and I feel like at this point we have kind of just collected the infinity gauntlet of just PlayStation podcast crossovers. And I feel like, what are we gonna snap for? What are we snapping for?
Case.
A what?
PlayStation Showcase.
We're gonna
please.
What about PlayStation Direct actually just letting us purchase stuff off their site?
I'll just say right now before I forget, because I will. Shout out to Strubles and Bits, a community member. We love Strubles.
Yeah.
Got me a PSVR 2.
Oh, hot damn!
He ordered it for me. I sent him the money, and we're good to go.
Okay, hot damn, good.
Yeah. So, Brett, I don't know if you know, PlayStation Direct hates us.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet earlier.
We can't order from it. It just says, "Hey, go to self-help with billing." It's literally kindergarten instructions.
Yeah.
Did you put in everything correctly? Yes. Do the addresses match? Yes. Contact us. And then when we contact them, they were like, "Oh, go somewhere else and buy it." That's literally what I heard twice.
Yep.
That is amazing customer service.
It's great.
Wow. That's great. It's crazy because I've gotten to where I buy so much of my stuff from PlayStation Direct because I've had great experiences and I find it simpler. Of course, PS Plus benefit of what was 2-day shipping, and now it seems to be changing depending on the product. But all things considered, I've gotten very lucky. I was able to get 3 PlayStation 5s at launch, one from Walmart, one from PlayStation Direct, and I won one from Burger King.
No way.
That's awesome.
And I'll tell you, until that point, I was the guy. Oh, the story is great because I was pooping when I did the scratch off. And I normally don't even. I know. I was to the point where I was like, oh, hold on. I have a bidet. So I was like, hold on, let me spray, wipe, and then we got to double check this. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was crazy because up until that point, I was the person who firmly believed those were bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to finally be amongst them, I was like, well, I can never talk down on a giveaway again because I've won what is it in many ways the crown jewel of giveaways.
Oh, I have a Cyberpunk graphics card. I won that. Yeah,
everybody winning things except for me.
I know.
Must be nice.
I felt that way, Kyle. I understand your pain. At my high school prom, they did a giveaway thing after prom, and I didn't even want to go to prom because it's not my scene. But I went because my girlfriend and now wife wanted to go. And almost everyone in our class won something besides 7 students. And I was one of the 7. And our class is 340 students.
Yeah.
Wow.
God damn.
I was a firm believer of it's never going to happen. But then I decided to change my attitude and I just started entering for everything because I thought it's a numbers game. Eventually I have to win something.
That's right. God bless.
Yeah. And it happened.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We just got to believe in chance, you know?
In the words of Parappa the Rapper, you got to believe.
That's right.
You gotta believe.
The greatest musician that ever was, according to some people in a dune somewhere.
In a dune?
Oh, maybe that's a reference to something. I can't tell you. Huh. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. That being said, Brett, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Ready? Are you ready for
absolutely.
this? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? What does it mean to you to be able to talk about PlayStation each and every week? You've been covering PlayStation for years alongside us. What does it mean for you to be covering the platform?
Yeah, that's a hell of a question right there. It's something I've really loved, and I've had spouts of taking it for granted and other spouts of being like, wow, it's amazing that anyone cares about what I have to say at all. And I mean, the beauty of podcasting, and I think about in particular podcasting around a brand, is that I think we all talk about, and I'm sure at least on our show we always have, and I'm sure y'all come to the same conclusion a lot, is just because we love something doesn't mean we automatically have to hate something else.
Yep.
And then secondarily, that there's a lot of value in just being able to give a true, honest, non-media like presentation to information that's being passed through you. And I think a lot of people really click with earnest and honest opinions, even if they don't agree with them, if they can tell there's a genuine nature behind them. And I think that that's garnered a lot of podcasts in the years, definitely gaming ones, when you go to Twitter and it can be very insanely divisive. And it's a form of discourse that I'm not used to, because even though I spend time on Twitter, we have a Discord and we communicate in Discord and Facebook and many times in real life and through streaming. And I've had almost entirely amazing interactions with people.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest thing is that as someone who for many years had kept up with gaming and all these things and could see the worst of it, in an odd way, the podcast has only reaffirmed that the vast majority of us, not only doing the podcasting, but experiencing through the media, are really not the people who represent the fringe. And it's a great thing to be able to talk about that and have reciprocity from those people in a way that just really sells what we're going for.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail out on the head there, because for me, it's the same. I feel like, there's, I like how you pointed out the media aspect, because I feel like there's a lack of authenticity when you get certain news from certain places, or you're trying to be critical on one brand, or you're watching a podcast be critical on one brand, and you feel like they're pulling their punches, and then next week you understand why. Oh, it's because they have some sort of deal. Or it's hard to take big outlets seriously when, you know, they have a game plastered on their website, or a you know, here's the first 30 minutes of, and it's like, well, how can you be truly critical of a thing when you have these kind of backyard or background, you know, deals and whatnot? And though I understand the process, and it's not as, you know, I guess insidious as it is, a lot of viewers feel that way, and they're searching for something that feels like you're in a room talking to your friends about games. And, you know, though to us, you know, production is important, I think the message of we're just gamers. I'm not here to tell you that I'm the library of knowledge when it comes to PlayStation. I just love the brand and I love the developers that make them. So let's go chat about the thing we like, and not having to go out there and demonize, you know, Xbox for deals that they do or whatever have you, because we're all just playing games at the end of the day. And I feel like people are searching for authenticity now more than ever, because there's just so much inauthentic stuff out there. And I think that's why people stumble on our communities and go, oh, wow, there's something here, because it's something refreshing of, hey, these guys are just having fun talking about, you know, video games, talking about PlayStation, and it's not this animosity or this weird tribalistic warfare going on between PlayStation and Xbox things. It's silly. And so I have like a lot of, I feel, responsibility when talking about PlayStation, not to be knowledgeable, but to be respectful, and understand that, though, just like you, it's crazy why people would listen to me of all people. They're listening, and we mean something to folks. And I'm always keeping that in my mind's eye, you know?
Yeah. I want to hear from Kyle too, but you spoke on something that I think
It's fine, guy.
yeah. Fuck you, Kyle. I'm kidding. You seem like a lovely gentleman.
Thank you. At least one of us gets it.
Joe, you spoke on something about people really hearing it and just kind of going, oh, this isn't the dearth of comments that we hear drudge through specific media or Twitter personalities, people who primarily operate within Twitter. One of the most interesting and, like, I don't know, it spread me with a sense of authentic joy, because I just thought it was such a great description of how we approach the show, is one of our listeners and now patrons for many years now, Mark. The first time that he had listened to the show, I think it had been a while, but he had ended up sending me a message on Twitter to a blog post that he had wrote. And his blog post was all about the surprise of clicking on a PlayStation podcast at a time we were still pretty early days. We're probably around episode 100, and, you know, we're at 284 right now. So many years ago, when it was probably more divisive than it even is now in many ways, at least in terms of the podcast front. There was a period of time where podcasts that were extreme to one side or the other were definitely blowing up.
Yeah.
And so his thing was, it was blissful surprise for him to turn on a podcast, hear two people talking about PlayStation and how they love it, not immediately dismissing Xbox, not immediately doing anything other than just challenging what we don't like, and supporting what we do like, that not only Xbox but Nintendo and PC or any platform does. You know, I may primarily play on PlayStation, but I game on everything if the game calls to me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, the story of me being on this show is one because I, back in the day, stumbled upon Podcast Beyond, which I feel a lot of people who like PlayStation and PlayStation podcasts, that is usually where their story starts. And listening to that, and that being the first thing that was like, oh, people talk about games, the thing I love, PlayStation specific, on a thing called the podcast. Ooh, that's new. And then, you know, years later, meeting Joe at in New York City at a Kind of Funny meetup, another community that we all got together because we love video games. And then he was wanted a guest for a week. I said I'd love to, and the rest is history. And now I can, if I were to go back in time and tell younger Kyle, hey, you're going to be talking about PlayStation every single week for quote unquote 300 episodes. Who knows if that's the real number?
Who knows? I don't know, asterisk somewhere.
But like 4+ years, it's wild. And yeah, I do feel that sense of like responsibility to be those kind of good conversations that I had in school about games, where we were just geeking out about the things we were playing. We weren't bashing each other, or at least not severe, like I've heard other people bash other platforms and whatnot, but just like celebrate the thing that we all love doing. It's a common thing, and we need to celebrate it instead of telling other people how wrong they are for liking what they like. You love what you love. Don't let anyone yuck your yum. That's what I like to say.
Yeah. And
that's a saying.
That is a saying.
Listen, I love it. I love it.
On my gravestone. Put it on my gravestone.
I don't know about that, but I love it.
Come on.
No, and that's one thing that I try to do too. Like on Twitter, it's always a mess, especially nowadays. But it's just like, hey, let's just spread some positivity for a change.
Tell about the devs that you love them.
Exactly.
Support the people that make the things that we play. That's
so important. You know. That said, though, we went long in the tooth here, and you know what? Honestly, I dig it, but it's time for a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, before we get right into the show, I want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/PS Trophy Room. Like we say each and every week, it's the reason why we look so good, sound so great, is because of your generosity over at patreon.com/PS Trophy Room. I want to thank our platinum producers, Todd Burowitz and Toxic. I want to thank our gold members, N. Johnson, Too Soon, Gavin Gottfried, Jose Jimenez, Jedi Master and Metal Kirby, Stephen Flesh, Doth Simon the Pie Man, Chaotic Monkey, Enigma, Millennial Falcon Gaming, Sith Lord 92, and Strubles and Bits. I want to thank our Silver Plus members, Awesome Dave, Hide Indoors, and Nakachaka. Marcus O'Neill, JB the Purple Monkey, Jedus Vaughn Metal, Tim Ulf, Justin Rodriguez, Cypher Primus, Captain Logan, Brent Zachary, K. Grim, Rick Arrington, Tawane Raksha, The Good Sir Drellish, Foolish Fuji, Kevin Mitchell, Kevin Diaz, Elo 2032, Bubble Boy N7, Jesse Garcia, Hambone, The Aztec King, Stone Cold, E.T., Astronaut Jr., not to be mistaken with Astronaut Senior, Maximum Carnage. Green Gorilla Gamer, Katie, Lamb Chop 93, and Justin Rodriguez. Thank you all
hold on. You missed a line.
For your support. What did I miss?
You missed a line. Go back to after Katie. M9 Prime, Sean McKenzie, N. Johnson, Final Fanatics? Is that how you say it?
Oh, that's probably
Androzo and Vante Tatted.
There you go. Thank you all so much for your kindness and your support. It really does mean a lot. That said, Kyle, last bit of housekeeping. Next week's episode 300, would land on Thursday, which is American Thanksgiving, which I would like to call the real Thanksgiving. Canada gets one in October. Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to take it seriously? Sorry, Canadians. Hell out of here. It's the third week of November, like the good Lord said. That said, we're going to plan to have the episode out on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. So, you know, you have something in your ear while like your weird uncle's talking about God knows what. So make sure you have your RSS feeds tuned in on Wednesday of next week for episode 300, where we'll be revealing our nominees for our award show, which will be totally cooler than Geoff Keighley's anyway. So like, who cares, you know? That said, Kyle, it is time to square up the news.
First bit of news that needs to be squared up comes from Ryan Dinsdale over at IGN. Ryan writes, the Game Awards 2022 nomination sees God of War Ragnarok leading with 10 awards nods. Geoff Keighley has announced every nominee for the Game Awards 2022, with God of War Ragnarok and Elden Ring leading the way with 10 and 7 nominations respectively. God of War Ragnarok's nominations include Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score and Music, Best Audio Design, 2 in Best Performance, Best Action Adventure, and Innovation in Accessibility. Elden Ring saw a number of similar nominations, including Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score and Music, Best Audio Design, and Best RPG.
Ooh, this list caused a kerfuffle online. Could you believe that? A list of games causing an outroar on social media. No, I know it sounds hard to believe. That sounds hard to believe.
We just had a very great conversation about, celebrating what we love. Yep. No one would ever
try to tear it down.
No, come on.
I know, but that's crazy. That's
definitely not us.
Definitely not what we're about to do. Stingray X writes, just like you can too, if you add us over at PS Trophy Room for whenever, as long as Twitter lasts. I don't know how long that's going to be, boys. Or you can follow us on Discord and you can ask us questions there, just like Stingray did here. They write, hey, Joe, Kyle, Brett, and Chris. Chris wasn't cool enough to be on. Okay? He has to earn that right. Brett, he did. Chris, you got to earn those stripes. That said, what games do you believe were snuffed from the nominations? Take care. Okay, so a lot of people are like, dude, there were some snubs here. A lot of these lists, they feel like they're just playing it safe. It feels like it's a popularity contest. I got a whole lot of thoughts. Where was Cult of the Lamb? And a lot of this list is what I'm trying to preach. So I turn to you, Brett. How did you think about all these lists of nominees? There's 33. We only got 3 of them here that we wanted to really deep dive into. But what did you think about all the nominees here?
Well, kind of a peek behind the rug. We recorded 284 yesterday and it went live today. And we ended up talking a little bit about this. And I find it such a very odd year, not only for gaming at large and for everyone, because I do think there's a few clear, obvious answers for almost every category. And then I think the rest of the list are full of games that I really enjoyed, but I personally struggle to look at them as if they're leaders in some of the categories that they're doing. And I don't say that to take away from any of the games. I just think this year in particular has had such an odd thing of where so many releases have been pushed back into 23.
Yeah.
And I've probably gamed in the weirdest way this entire year, or the entire last decade, where I spent about a 3 to 4 month segment just replaying PS3 and PS Vita games because nothing was really pulling to me on PS5.
Yeah.
And
because everything came out in February.
Yeah. The year was very front loaded and then it was very backloaded.
Yeah.
And so there was this gap in the middle and there was this opportunity for things, right? Like I was always one trophy away from Infamous 2's platinum due to a glitch on PS3 to where I beat it on hard mode, but for some reason it just didn't calculate. I'd replayed the game plenty of times, but just never did it on hard. And I thought, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get that platinum.
God bless.
So that started it. Killzone Mercenary comes and says, we're going to shut down the servers. And I adore that game. I love it so much that I just played like 130 hours to finally nail out the platinum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I played Wolverine Origins on the PS3 for the first time because Chris had left it whenever he came for our episode 250 celebration. He flew in and did a local episode with us. So I did a lot of that. And I had a great time doing it, but most of my fun this year has actually come from games that were not from this year. Yeah. And that's not the fault of the industry so much. I don't think the industry is entirely not at fault. It's been an odd year where things have been pushed, but I think my own gaming habits have led this to be a very hard conversation for me to have in a way that I feel like has the due diligence needed. To really strongly say anything. I think the main takeaway that I would say is that the one game I feel like has not getting enough love in general has been Gran Turismo 7.
Oh.
I haven't played Cult. I want to, I promise you, but I haven't played Signalis, and I want to, but I haven't.
Fair enough.
It's yeah. So I've been following my heart this year. I've been following my heart. That led me to play Sonic Frontiers before God of War and Platinum, I never in my life would have thought that would have happened.
All right, fair. I mean, I'm judging you a little bit, but like that's fair. Well, Gran Turismo 7, that's interesting. So you think that's one of the snubs? You think that's the one that kind of got past it or forgotten?
Yeah, I think the thing is that so far in the games I've completed, I refuse to mention God of War Ragnarok here because I've not beaten it. So I'm reserving judgment to talk too strongly about it until I get to experience it. I have thoughts about the game for sure, but Elden Ring was the first time that a Soul style or even a FromSoft game just did not click with me. And
oh really?
And I'm not sure why. So. Okay. I'm not writing the game off. I own it. I can go back and play it at any point. And I'm waiting for a wild hair to strike and see if I can lose myself in that game. I played about 5 to 7 hours, somewhere in that ballpark, and it just never clicked. And I felt like all of the things I loved about previous FromSoft games, that was only reaffirmed with the Demon's Souls remake that Bluepoint did.
God bless.
Is I love how tightly crafted those games are. And I'm not saying it's wrong of them to do it, but for them to take that style of game that I love, where a lot of the core mechanics are there from Demon's Souls and Bloodborne and Dark Souls, and then to bust that wide open, I don't know that it was wrong. I just don't think it was speaking to me and what my personal hype was for the game, even though I was aware that it was doing that. So Gran Turismo has been the takeaway. I've always loved Gran Turismo, but Sport was, I won't say disappointing, but it just didn't do it for me. It didn't have enough.
So
and
I got
when
a
Gran
question
Turismo
here.
7 hit, I blew through that. I played that for about 130 hours at launch, and yeah.
Where else do you think it should have landed in the awards category? Because it is in best sports and racing game. Do you think it should have also been like in best sim?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally do, and I also I could see this sounding crazy for people who aren't into racing games, but I think if you look at the craft behind that game and just how much love and labor went into it, it is a peak made game, and I honestly think it deserves it. I loved Stray. I do.
Right.
I think actually, if I was going to take a game out of Game of the Year and put Gran Turismo in, which I am 100% suggesting, no PlayStation fans hate me for saying this.
Just do it.
Horizon Forbidden West would be the game I would take out of this list.
Yeah, okay.
Not that I didn't enjoy it,
right?
But it's a game that I feel like did not represent the year and what gaming has pushed forward to in the way that Zero Dawn did in 2017 when it came out, because it was my game of the year for 2017.
Yeah, same.
And Forbidden West was not disappointing. It just, as a follow-up, I felt like it took steps forward and then other steps back, and then it just also lost some ground. And this is conversation that I'm kind of going through with myself right now involving God of War Ragnarok, because they're both follow-ups to very well-received games, one being a known franchise and one being new.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not saying anything negative about God of War Ragnarok, but there, as you play a game and you unpack what's happening before you, and they're both follow-ups to very highly praised
You get
games.
a lot of expectations. I feel like I feel like they're even graded a little differently in terms of like what I'm like. Now that we know what God of War is, now that we know what Horizon is, these sequels have to live up to them, and then somehow the status quo is it has to be better than the game before it, or perceived better than the game before it. And for each person, the thing that they want from a sequel is going to be different, and I feel like it's not always going to resonate the way that I feel like fans will want it to in some cases. Kyle, I want to turn to you here. What do you think was some of the biggest snubs? What would you have liked to see in all these types of nominees categories?
Say it with me, everybody.
Say it.
MLB The
Cult of the
Show
Lamb
getting robbed once again. Why is this game never nominated in the best sports game of the year? I just don't understand it. I say it every single year on the show around this time of the year. What Sony San Diego has done year after year is incredible. What that game is the best baseball simulation game ever made, year in, year out. I just don't understand why it's not in there. I get a lot of reviewers are there's a lot of European contingents, and that's why FIFA and F1 is big, and that's why they're in there. But like, I don't know, just once in a while, please. NBA 2K has not been good for a few years. Why is that there instead of MLB The Show?
Right.
So like, that always bugs me.
Chris agrees with you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
my co-host. He loves it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. As far as game of the year goes, it's a good list. I love Stray. It was not my favorite indie of the year. Cult of the Lamb was. But I also... Geoff Keighley. Why is there always only one token indie game in game of the year?
Yeah.
There's always one. And you can... It's like a broken clock is right twice a day. Will always be only one indie game in the game of the year thing. And I feel like he can expand that category.
Do you
to
think
limit
maybe,
it to so little? Like, just add a couple more games to the list.
like you think 8 would suffice?
Yeah, like I don't know. Like the Oscars realized that was a mistake. And,
yeah, how many
and
nominees do
that.
they have with?
I think they can do up to 10.
Oh, hot damn! Then why don't we do
so
that?
Like, I don't know. I just want more representation of these smaller games.
Yeah.
And Game of the Year doesn't always have to mean the biggest and best with multi-millions of dollars pushed behind it.
Yeah, and it goes like for me, as y'all know, Cult of the Lamb was robbed of many things. So like the one, I'm bewildered by how it's not in best art direction, because that game is special art wise. I think it's beautiful. I love its aesthetic. It's something different that I've never seen a game like Cult of the Lamb, right?
Yeah.
So for it not being there, I think is bewildering. And you're right. I think one of the big problems here is I feel like a lot of these categories feel like this is this was Google Analytics say that these games are popular, so they're going to be in these categories. Instead of saying like Neon White. Yeah. From everything I've heard, that game could and should be in Game of the Year. Even when you take a look at where it's rated on, though I hate doing this, but in a critic perspective, if this is, based on, the biggest critics of the industry grading these games or voting on these games, it should be also on their grades. Like Neon White's rated a lot higher than Stray is. And so like to see that game being pushed aside, why? Not to say that I don't like Stray and it shouldn't be your Game of the Year if it is your Game of the Year, but I do think the reason probably why Stray is there is because it broke through the medium, to other outlets. Like I saw like CNN articles, I saw like my literal, sister-in-law came up to me. She's like, can I play the Stray game or watch you play it? Cause like, she's a big cat lover. So it's like, that's probably why Stray is here. Like Elden Ring, of course, Elden Ring's gonna be here for many valid reasons, but like, it's also one of the biggest games this year. And when I see it being nominated for, and let's just get into this, let's just break this one in half right here. Like best narrative, that's pretty nuts. Because though I love how From Software crafts their worlds and the stories that they tell, I would never say that most From Software games narratives are particularly, I hate to say great, but particularly standout. I think their stories are unique because they're a whole bunch of mini stories hidden between items and land masses and characters that you meet, and they get sewn up to form what is like a historical time lapse or timeline of things that occurred, and that's the story. I don't know why Elden Ring's there and why I think games that were better in that regard from Software weren't. It's a little weird. Or like Immortality, I could understand why that's there for best narrative, but it makes me question why a game like Pentiment isn't, because it's been rated 9s and 10s as well. It's just a narrative driven game. Why isn't that there when the cutoff's the 18th? It just doesn't
exactly
make a lot of sense.
Then that's that arbitrary cutoff date, which I always think is weird. Why some games are in it, some games are not. Like these nominees are here, but the cutoff date isn't until a few days from now.
Yeah.
So like, why not wait until after the cutoff date to announce the nominees, to allow other games and reviewers to have their take? It's so weird. And to on the indie game front as well, like the best indie category, I feel like a lot of people who are part of the nomination group need to realize there are other games, indie games, other than Devolver and Annapurna. There's a lot of indie games that aren't represented at all, and this is becoming what I think everyone hates about award shows in general. It's so commercialized.
Yes.
It is the biggest of the biggest, the best of the best. I get these games are great. I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah.
It just, I want to see more inclusion of some of the smaller games that did very well.
Like Vampire Survivor.
Game. Yeah, and same thing like on best family game. It's just there's the Nintendo category.
Yes.
There are other family games on other platforms. I just don't understand.
Yeah. I think that's another thing to this award show. To me, I feel like our problem isn't with not so much who's there, more so of who isn't there. Because we should be celebrating some of these more. You're right. There's more indie publishers and developers than just Annapurna and Devolver. There are other awesome indies that came out this year. Let's celebrate it. Like Tinykin, from what I understand, is a phenomenal platformer. Mm-hmm. That's a small team. Celebrate that game. Yeah. And you can do that when you have a show as big as this. That said, though, let's move a little bit onward towards M9 Prime.
Can I quickly interject?
Please, quickly.
Just because there's one thing, really there's two things. I think we're kind of brushing up against really in these conversations. There's three big points that are kind of happening around this discussion. So the first thing is sometimes I feel like there's not enough of a real scope to the actual categorization. So like when you look and you say Elden Ring and FromSoft games and how they build narrative, the problem with best narrative is it's too broad of a stroke and it doesn't really paint an idea of what you're trying to hone in on. And so you have to ask yourself, it's like, well, what makes a narrative great? Are we talking about specifically the story, where the end point for these character arcs are? Are we talking about world building? Are we talking, because I would almost argue that no one builds worlds as well as FromSoft.
Oh, absolutely.
Their games are packed full of crazy lore that other developers just wish they could pull off. Yeah. And God of War Ragnarok is doing something so totally different. It's doing character first story building and storytelling, and it's still doing world building through that. But even then, I would say that what I've experienced of God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, even with copious amounts of world building within those games, they still are not touching the surface of what a FromSoft games world gets built out to be. There's you experience all of that.
There's a passive thing, God of War, where you're just passive and the narrative is being told to you, and then there's more involved, which is what FromSoft is.
Yeah,
where they make you search for an answer.
Yeah, like I agree that Elden Ring has great lore and story and cool characters in there. I personally am just not a fan with how it's delivered.
Sure.
And I think that's where that disconnect is, I feel like, for a lot of people.
And I feel like first off, you hit the nail on that. I think narrative is too broad. Maybe we could separate that a bit and make it a subcategory here.
And they have done that with certain categories. Like I don't know if y'all have seen, but throughout the years, they have taken certain categories and split them into finer details so that you can more easily try and paint what you want the nominees to represent. Because I think each of the games listed here, I think God of War, A Plague Tale, and Horizon are all telling a story in one way, and then Elden Ring and Immortality are telling stories in vastly different ways than those two games.
True.
And none of them are right or wrong. It's just sometimes it helps to have slightly more categorization, but you never want to reach the point of where like music has gotten to, where every genre has got 18 subgenres, and then those subgenres have further subgenres. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it does help to narrow down and give real scope to what you're talking about so that people can feel like the categories well represent what's within them. Because I know that there are people that are looking at this and going, why is Elden Ring here? And then there's people in this that are going, why is God of War here? Yeah. Significantly more people are probably looking at Elden Ring. But the point being is that one is conventional storytelling and one is not. And that doesn't make one better than the other. So
another
thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was trying to get at, not as eloquently as you. Is like, From Software is really great at building these worlds, but like the narrative, like, is so ambiguous and purposely so, but so much so that it's like I can't really tell you anything from Elden Ring, like I can't tell you the events from A, B, C, D, and E all the way. It
also doesn't help that all their characters' names start with an M, and it's really hard to differentiate from them.
That's fair.
Yeah, so like Bloodborne has got such a crazy story, and I actually have loved that every time I play Bloodborne, you eke a little bit more of that story out, and you're like, oh, oh, I see this connection. And you play
Mhm.
again, you're like, I see that connection. And there is a real narrative at play there. It's just it chooses to go about making you work for the payoff rather than doing the God of War approach of we're going to just present to you the story and let you soak and bask in it. And they're both effective in very different ways. It's just one's probably going to work better for a conventional audience and one is not. And yet somehow Elden Ring is sold like 20 million copies. So
Absolutely. Also,
Yeah.
why is Inscription not there? That's nuts. But
Oh, that was the last year game.
oh, last
That
year
was
game,
last
yes, big problem I had too because I adore Inscription. But Inscription's also this year on PlayStation.
Fair. That's
so
why I
to,
forgot.
to wrap up my 2 points.
Go for it. Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt as well. Second thing is, you were talking about why does MLB constantly get shafted?
Yeah.
And I think a big issue that I'm not the first to say this, but a big issue is that it's an early year game, and there's conversations that are really good questions about how games like Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite can get 9s and 10s, and yet be completely absent on this when a game like Horizon Forbidden West and Stray. And actually good for Horizon and Elden Ring because both of those are early year games. But recency bias is a huge deal that not only the industry deals with, but we as individuals deal with.
Yeah.
You are always more fond of things that are closer to your memory.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem to deal with. But I guess my last point to kind of cap all of that is I think we're really brushing against why when you're dealing with art, which is essentially what this is, and we're dealing with it at a fan level like we are, art and business seldom go together as well as you think they would. And at the end of the day, as much as I can sometimes lament the way that the Game Awards choose to present the show with, in the past, they've done it with bad, like no focus on games at times.
Yep.
And it's, what are you doing? But it's a business move.
Yeah,
but
we remember
at
the
the
Spike
end of the day,
TV days. They were
I
bad.
remember Shit Quattro, man. I was there. I was there.
Dude. That and then the early days where all the music stuff was just like bands, and I'm like, I get that, but like we're talking about gaming. Why are you not playing? And they have started that. I love that they're now playing video game scores and creating medleys of all the big themes for things.
Yeah,
it's awesome, and I love that. And that means every year they're getting closer to something that feels like a celebration of games. But at the end of the day, we know that in the background, this is always just trying to mix art and business in a way that is never going to make enough sense to us as fans who are pulling it in as what it is, which is art. Because there are times where The Order 1886 can be one of my favorite games of all time, but it can be an absolute miss for the majority of people. And no one's wrong in that situation. And I can't be upset that in a Game Awards situation, it doesn't get mentioned at all, even though that year it was one of my favorite games.
Oh, same.
But that's okay.
Brett,
that's okay.
How many times I've just texted Kyle going, man, Ghost of Tsushima was Game of the Year 2020, and it wasn't even close. And then next week I'll be like, Last of Us Part 2 was Game of the Year 2020, and it wasn't even close.
The Death Stranding year is the one where it seemed every other week was a different game.
I'm like, Jedi Fallen Order was Game of the Year.
That was a good year.
Exactly.
Yeah. It really was.
But I think you're right. I think a lot of... First off, this award show is going to be imperfect, just like how our little award show is going to be imperfect. And you're right.
Beauty of having all these, though, right?
Yeah,
That's why I love podcasts, because it gives fringe communities of people who love certain games a voice of someone they can find that they enjoy, who sees what they saw in those games and can give it that recognition.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think that we really should not put so much weight on the Game Awards. Everyone treats, and I tried making this point on our episode, and I understand why it gets given the weight that it gets given, but in all honesty, I don't think it's much how I feel about Metacritic. The weight of how you feel about a game should not have to be told to you. And this is a great way to celebrate games and get eyes on games. And I'm glad that they do, even if it is just a token indie game.
Yeah.
You know, I finally played Hades because I heard a lot of people talking about it. And then I saw it at the Game Awards and I thought, I've clearly got to get around to playing this.
For sure,
and it was amazing. Yeah. So I'm glad that exists. But at the end of the day, I think that there's so much value. It doesn't matter if it's us talking to 500 people, and it doesn't matter if our 500 is made up of 200 of the same people. people find a lot of value in just hearing different people talk about what they loved about a game and the excitement that comes from that kind of misses from those events.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head here. When we talk about all these award shows, it's like, and even like reviews, like Ghost of Tsushima I'm playing Ragnarok, I love it, love Elden Ring, all that, is my favorite game of all time, just like Bloodborne is my favorite game of all time, right? And that game has a 80-something Metacritic. But like, you're right, a game shouldn't, or a value shouldn't be told to you. You know, the value of something should be felt. When I'm playing it, what am I feeling right now? You know, and that's the importance. It's like there are moments I'm thinking about Ghost of Tsushima. Look at, I'm getting chills because I'm thinking of the moments in that game and how, you know, all those things meant to me in those moments, and I'm just like, yeah, this game's great. Just like I'm doing with God of War and Elden Ring, and I'm not thinking about like, well, which one's gonna be my game of the year? It's like, no, I'm just enjoying this thing. I'm not being told. I'm just feeling it in the moment. And I think that's something that we often lose. That said, though, M9 Prime writes in, for the Game Awards, do you think, oh, look at this, it bleeds into what we were saying. Do you think advertising had anything to do with a game like Stray getting on there, but a game like Cult of the Lamb being left out? I know 6 slots is not a lot, but in terms of indie games, I think I heard more positive stuff from users, whereas Stray was a bit more mainstream marketing done by Sony. I only played Stray, and it was pretty good, but I'm pretty sure that Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Vampire Survivors were also good. Also, Kyle, what indie game do you think should have been on that list, Joe? I'm not trying to leave you out. Just Kyle does a lot of indie stuff. Listen, I am the indie guy on this show. It's been well documented. But yeah, I think it bleeds into what you said, Brett. It's like business and art seldom mesh. And we're kind of seeing that, you know, I think that Keighley's thinking of a lot of these things of like, through that promotion lens, getting more eyes on the screen, which means more promoters are going to throw money at you. And you're doing it in December because you know that that's where all these big companies throw the most of their monies during the holiday season. So he's really trying to get the most bang for his buck while trying to make a really good show that's going to, you know, speak to the majority or the mainstream, but casting that wide net, you're going to leave quite a few folks out. Kyle.
Well, and it's also just like 3 hours of Super Bowl commercials, but for video games.
Well, like Magic.
That's literally what it is.
Hey, give a shout out to Keighley, because as much as I'm saying these things, I appreciate the fact that he is a hybrid. He is someone who you can tell is passionate about gaming, but he understands that there's a business here as well. And I think that when you have someone like that, instead of people like Bobby Kotick from Activision, you get someone who at least means well and is trying to do the best for gaming industry and fans as a whole, while still playing in to the business side and making enough money to continue being able to do this and slowly make it something that is more gamer friendly, as he probably proves to many people. There is money to be made in gaming.
Yeah, you know. And we also have the DICE Awards, which are the non-advertiser,
which is great. I'm glad that those exist. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. As far as indie games that I think should have been on any list, either best indie or game of the year, here's a few. I had to pull up my GG library. Curse the Golf, I think, deserves a nod for best debut indie. That was a great game. We Are OFK. The few episodes I played are fantastic. Arcade Paradise, great simulation thing about running an arcade in your laundromat. But here come the two heavy hitters that I feel like
got shafted.
Infernax, stellar.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Infernax is a stellar old school, very difficult kind of Castlevania-esque mixed with Souls a little bit. It's fantastic. Yeah. But the biggest snub, other than Cult of the Lamb not getting Game of the Year.
Please.
Why is Nobody Saves the World not nominated for anything?
It's a fantastic game.
Dude.
Drinkbox does it. Drinkbox does it
every time.
It's so good. It's so
I don't understand why it's not in best indie.
Yeah. Like I haven't played it, so I don't want to act like I have, but
it's
I have
good.
I have failed at this year at keeping up with indies as much as I usually do. And I've noticed that when I look at my list of games, there's significantly less because I'm only playing the bigger games, which I have a lot going on in my personal life.
Sure.
But I have severely missed the joy that comes. Yeah, there is no excuse. That's right, Joe.
That's right.
You put me in my fucking place and you tell me you play these games.
That's right. You tell your wife, you tell your family, you tell everybody.
Not today.
I look my daughter dead in the eye and I go, no bedtime story tonight. I gotta play Cult of the Lamb.
Guess what? The Princess and the Frog, who gives a
The next question comes from Green Gorilla Gamer. Sup, boys, and sup to the new boys. Esteemed guests, what is your favorite mathematical formula and why? Also, welcome to the Trophy Room, a PlayStation podcast made by the players, the beautiful Joe and Kyle. For the players, us less beautiful people, because Joe now looks like Kratos in my mind.
That's right.
Jokes aside, my question for the show is, with the Game Awards creeping up on us faster than Jason Voorhees himself, do you think Sony will have a strong presence since they haven't done a showcase at this point? Kyle touched on this a bit last week, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think about Sony doing this. It would kind of make sense because a lot of people watch TGA every year, whereas the Sony showcase is smaller in comparison. Am I wrong? Hashtag give us a Spider-Man 2 trailer for fuck's sake.
Oh.
In other news, I got myself a 4K TV for FREE. So I'm one step closer to playing God of War 2018 in what I hear is glory, LOL. Much love. Stay crab raven, boys.
Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. Okay, yeah. So, Kyle, we touched on this like last week a little bit. The odds of us getting a showcase this year.
It's not happening.
Do you guys buy into the Sony purposely not doing it to make
because
themselves
of the
not
Xbox
look?
thing?
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
We had
the later we get in the year, the more I believe it.
Yeah, friend of the show, Travis, when he was on, he said something very unpopular. He's like, "I'd like to believe that they're not doing it because of that, or sorry, that's not the reason why they're not doing it." But yes, and yeah, the more that they hold off, the more I'm like, God damn it, Phil. Why couldn't you just let this whole Call of Duty thing, why couldn't you say it 8 times before September that this wasn't, But yeah, no, I'm starting to buy into it. What about you, Brett?
I have been very much in the same thing. There's a part of me that it sounds like conspiracy theory gold.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of a sensible business move. Like if I remove myself from being a fan, if I was Jim Ryan sitting there and my job rests on how well I can make Sony do, and part of that is whether or not I can keep Call of Duty on PlayStation and preferably keep Microsoft from even getting the Activision merger. Not that I think it's wrong, but if I was Jim Ryan sitting there, I would totally come across in my mind of, we probably shouldn't do a showcase where we all in one sitting show all the great things that we have either making internally that make it look like we're so far out of league of their competition that this would not hurt anything in the industry.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, all the third party deals they make where Xbox can point a finger and go, they're doing exactly what we're doing in a different way. Yeah. So I think when you put all that together, you're left with the fact that Sony could still have all these announcements spread out across a couple of different things, like, hey, Silent Hill 2 remake is going to be PS5 exclusive for a little bit. And then over here, where Resident Evil's getting some exclusive content. Oh, and then over here, here's a Spider-Man 2 trailer.
Yeah.
And if you dilute it, I believe that it will make you not look as in a position of power to the same degree if you put it all in a showcase. So I believe it, but we will never know if it's true.
But also, like, on the other hand, if PlayStation has a strong presence on the Game Awards, is that not essentially the same outcome?
I mean,
I thought that too.
So to me, I think but
it's diluted still.
If I'm Mr. Lion Ryan, lying through my teeth, whatever, crying, whatever they say online. You gotta. I would think, if we have 1 or 2 games here that people are really excited about, so like we'll show us Spider-Man, or we'll show like The Last of Us multiplayer because Neil hinted at it or whatever.
I mean, that ended Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, so like I think you could have. Oh God, I hate saying this, but like, not even Spider-Man. Spider-Man, no. You know what? Put that in there. You can have like a B tier announcement and an A tier announcement. of like, oh, hot damn, this is here, like a Spooderman, and then you can have like a B tier announcement. Oh, Twisted Metal's coming back. How neat! In that show. So I do believe at this point I'm with y'all. This may be the Maricopa County of conspiracy theories, but I'll be down with it. I would be down with it.
I honestly think we're gonna get probably 3 or 4 PlayStation things at the game.
No, I think we're lucky if we get to. I think we're lucky if we get to.
See, I feel like y'all aren't accounting for the fact that PSVR 2 is on the horizon, pun intended. But when you think of that, I think that there's no way we don't get out of this with at least one new VR showing of something, whether it be first
like
party,
Half-Life
Alex.
Deal. Oh, you took it from me.
Oh, so sorry, Kyle. Sorry.
I was stretching and everything. No, it's fine. The moment's gone.
No, you're right. Actually, I think, the headset, that means something, and it's niche enough where I think it wouldn't raise any regulatory eyebrows, if that makes any sense. Again,
I don't think so either.
Going with the conspiracy theorists, and I put the tinfoil hat right on.
Like it'd be, in my eyes, my dumb non business mind eyes. It'd be so stupid to have PSVR 2 coming out in a few months and then not being shown off on a showcase or on a video format.
We know they're going to. Do y'all remember how often they showed Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo? They understand marketing something to get your most. I mean, dude, the marketing for Ragnarok has been insanity.
Sure. To be fair with Ghostwire and Deathloop, though, I feel like they went that hard because they were our last hope of Bethesda on PlayStation still.
Fair enough. Like, if you could show, like, look how well you performed on our system. Yeah.
But I think it'd be so smart at PSVR 2, at least in some shape or form.
True.
There.
Okay, so PSVR 2 will have a presence. Maybe
Spider-Man
that'll be
2.
one of the forever ads that you see. You know?
Oh, I hope not.
It's mixed in with your Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Right in between the Raid Shadow Legends, you got PSVR 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, and I think that's good enough to get the mainstream audience going, oh, look at this headset. Look, that's neat. And then checking it out. And then having a smaller-esque announcement to get people excited for. But at this point, y'all, I don't know if we're getting one in December. Maybe January, but December, probably not.
See, the thing is that Sony's at TGA anyway, because the chances that Square is going to take the stage to show off Forspoken, which is hot on the heels, coming out in late January, right? Early February, one of the two. So Sony is there. They have games that aren't coming from their first party, but they have deals with. If we end up seeing anything about Final Fantasy 16, I could see that being here. I could also see it not. But point being is that Sony will be there even when it's not directly Sony, even if it's another developer or publisher's name, because they have enough deals in the industry that they know how to work. I mean, the one thing you can't say is that they know how to broker an agreement with with publishers. They just do.
Absolutely.
I will also point out that a remake part 2 is technically next winter. So, like,
you're a real crazy son of a gun. You know that?
Listen, I got to dream big, Joe. I got to dream big. I got to see a little bit more of that thing.
Well, here's my last question. We'll end this whole game awards segment with this. And again, I know we haven't finished these games, but everybody's talking about it. I want to be part of the SEO right here. We talk about Game of the Year needing more people in here, but all the talk of the town is who's going to take it, Elden Ring or Ragnarok? Who do you think wins Game of the Year at the Geoff Keighley Awards? I'm going to go with you, Kyle.
Oh, man. I feel like it's 2018 all over again, and it's Red Dead 2 versus God of War 2018, where Elden Ring has got a bunch of nominations. So does Ragnarok. I feel like Elden Ring's going to take them all. Oh, and then I think I do think Ragnarok will take home Game of the Year.
Okay,
Part of me feels like that is true.
I think it's the other way around. I think Ragnarok wins a bunch of awards. At the end of the day, we're gonna see Miyazaki on stage taking the crown, as it were.
Could be.
What say you, Brett?
I think both are obvious answers and good answers, and I don't think you're going to have too much to go wrong. And the odd part of me is looking at this from the online standpoint and reaction, uh, not selecting God of War Ragnarok will have more repercussions that are at least voiced on the Twitter sphere than Elden Ring. But Elden Ring, I have a feeling Elden Ring is going to take it.
Same.
Just by a small margin, primarily because of the fact that if I were doing this and you want to kind of hush the naysayers, a really good way is to choose a game like Elden Ring that is an obvious contender, an obvious choice, but a lot of people are going to look at God of War Ragnarok being a more conventional game from a very long running successful series that is exclusive, so it has fanboy armies behind it to help push it. And I think that if you give a game like Elden Ring that, for all the moans you're going to get for people who didn't get God of War Ragnarok as game of the year, a lot of people are going, this is going to like legitimize the Game Awards a little bit more, because people are like, they did give it to the underdog game when the underdog game probably outsold God of War Ragnarok by the time it's all said and done, if we're just being honest.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because no FromSoft game has managed to do that.
Well, no,
Sekiro won in 2019.
Oh, you're
Put
right.
respect on Sekiro's name.
Oh, no, I just meant sales. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Specifically
Sure.
sales. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think the thing that God of War has against it is kind of what we spoke to earlier. It's like God of War is at this point like a known quantity. We have expectations of this sequel. We kind of know what God of War is and what Ragnarok will be. And it's more of the lack of better words, everybody relax, 2018 in a sense, right? Well, Elden Ring feels like it's something new. It feels something different. It's doing something, what I would think maybe some people would say more revolutionary, where I feel like God of War 2018 did the revolutionary part. Ragnarok just has to build upon it, where Elden Ring does something truly revolutionary in its open world, that I think people will see that and go, I'm going to choose Elden Ring. Though, Elden Ring is also built on the backs of its previous Dark Souls, Bloodborne series, and even bits of
In more words, you basically said what I was thinking, is that Elden Ring is the God of War 2018 to all of the Souls games before it.
Yep.
And that it's a very similar structured game, but it reinvents the wheel in regards to that series, where it has hallmarks and it also is not afraid to vastly change them up, which is exactly what God of War 2018 did. Yep. And Ragnarok is always going to have to deal with the fact that it is not revolutionizing even its own franchise, let alone maybe the industry at large.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That said, though, I think what is and I mean, this is for a spoiler cast that we'll do later, is in its writing. I think Ragnarok is so far one of the best written games that I've been through. That being said, though, that's enough about the Geoff Keighley Awards. Again, we're gonna have our own awards. It's gonna be so much better. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I'm very stressed out about it. Everything might just fall at the seams. Who knows? Episode 300, check it out next week. We're going to be announcing all that goodness. Stay tuned for that. Now, Kyle, it's time for the topic that you were chomping at the bit.
Oh, I'm so excited
to get into.
I can't wait.
Go for
Chris
it.
Scullion at VGC writes, Phil Spencer says he's open to committing to Sony that Call of Duty will stay on PlayStation longer term. Speaking on The Verge's Decoder podcast, Phil Spencer explained that he was open to making a commitment that would make Sony and global regulators happy, as Microsoft continues to await approval for its proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Quote, this idea that we would write a contract that says the word forever in it, I think is a little bit silly, Spencer said. But to make a longer-term commitment that Sony would be comfortable with, that regulators would be comfortable with, I have no issue at all, end quote. This appears to be the first time Spencer has suggested,
How dare you?
has suggested that Microsoft might be willing to make clear concessions, as regulators, including those in the UK and EU, have been expanding their investigation into the proposed deal. Attempting to clarify that there were no tricks or loopholes to his statement, Spencer added, quote, We think Call of Duty will be on PlayStation as long as players want to play Call of Duty on PlayStation. And that's not a competitive threat against PlayStation. That's just a pragmatic way of looking at it, end quote. When the podcast host Nilay Patel appeared to start suggesting that Xbox could get around this by offering a streaming-only version on PlayStation, Spencer quickly interrupted to clarify, quote, native Call of Duty on PlayStation, not linked to them having to carry Game Pass. If they want a streaming version of Call of Duty, we could do that as well, just like we do on our own consoles, Spencer said. There's nothing behind my back, end quote. Continuing to clarify further, Spencer added, quote, it is the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 doing great on PlayStation, doing great on Xbox, the next game, the next game, the next native on the platform, not having to subscribe to Game Pass. Sony does not have to take Game Pass on their platform to make that happen. There's nothing hidden. We want to continue to ship Call of Duty on PlayStation without any kind of weird, aha, I figured out the gotcha, end quote. In the same interview with The Verge, Spencer said that Xbox will struggle to continue as a global business if the company doesn't establish a foothold in mobile, and that the Activision Blizzard deal is primarily about acquiring Candy Crush maker King, not Call of Duty.
I just like first off, you can tell he's really tired of answering this question over and over again.
Yeah.
Also, I just love the next game and the next game because it's reminding me of the episode of SpongeBob where Plankton and Mr. Krabs switch bodies, and Mr. Krabs like, I'll try the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's just, I don't know, all of this kind of just seems silly at this point, but further clarification, I like what he said, like the word forever is silly. And I think to expect Call of Duty here in perpetuity from any company is silly, because Call of Duty, though we can't imagine it now, will not be the same force it was, you know, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years. So like to think that they forever had to be linked to making this game on PlayStation is dumb. But at the same exact time, you're getting clarification of it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's the important thing here. So, you know, we've beaten this at this point, this topic well dead. But Brett, I want to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
So
situation?
Situation.
This is nothing new for what I've been saying in relation to this, but I think this interview in particular is interesting because I think it's Phil taking a chance to try and come from what feels like a genuine and personable place, and I think he mostly succeeds. But I think as is any president and CEO and figurehead's job, this still could not completely get away from a little bit of corporate speak.
Yeah.
And it's important, and I'm not even judging him for it, but I think it's very important to look at the way he worded it, because it is silly to look and try and put the word forever into something. Yeah. And it is silly to think that someone who owns something should not have the ability to, anytime they see fit, to pull it for their benefit, should they choose to do so. And I think if Sony were given the other side of the shoe and could make something happen and the deal happen without having to give that concession, they absolutely would. Absolutely. I think the only reason that Bungie happened the way it did is the importance for Sony to get Bungie so that they can use that knowledge to help the rest of their teams make live service games. But I think if Destiny was anywhere as big as Call of Duty, they would be trying everything they could to still keep that exclusive. Instead, they're like, Bungie, keep making your games, whatever, just help our other teams make their thing. So in that regard, I do think that this is the likely outcome. I think that saying that we want to continue to ship on PlayStation so long as PlayStation players want to continue to play on PlayStation, that will always be the case. There will never come a day where people who play PlayStation are like, I don't want to play Call of Duty on the system I play constantly and maybe the only one I own. So again, it's corporate speak, but at the same time, it is what it is. I expect this to go through, but Chris made a good point in our episode yesterday in the sense that, in a way, I feel like this concession and the way he's going about it is, I think Microsoft is beginning to feel less confident about it going through.
Yes. I've been saying this for the past few weeks of
Jim Ryan being a little sneaky is working a little bit.
Yeah, I think I said this a few weeks back of like, if I'm Jim Ryan, I am looking I'm looking extremely impressive to the Sony at large board, because that boy wants he wants to be the CEO of Sony, and I think they look at him as like, holy crap, you just made $1 trillion company bleed. That's something, even if it's a nosebleed, that's something. I think it is a lot different of a tone from let us have competition to, hey, listen, okay. That was a little fucking crazy what we just said. What we meant was, yeah, you want it? The tone has changed drastically to now they're like, yeah, we're willing to play ball. Now I feel like Jim Ryan's just like, he's pointing out the contract. He's like, okay, that's Phil, that's cute. You said all that stuff. Now let's sign that right here in this dotted line. That's what I think it all comes down to at this point, because I feel like outsider looking in, there is now a real possibility this thing could not go through, but I think Xbox is doing all that they can do to make sure it goes through, which is, okay, if it means we give Jim Ryan a better deal on Call of Duty, that's what we're going to do. And well, I also believe right with you, dude, like this should go through in actuality, because I want people like Bobby Kotick to leave. So, for me, I feel like it should go through. I feel like the management will be better. I think the employees will leave happier lives because of it. And I think that's really the most important thing. So yeah, it should go through as a PlayStation fan. Absolutely.
Can I gauge you guys' thoughts on something in particular? Because it does kind of play into
my
this
thoughts are dark,
process,
but you can go for it.
Man, mine too.
You have no idea.
Something that we talk about in relation to this is just really the way that Microsoft really likes to use PR speak to their benefit. Every company does. But in this particular thing where we're putting a microscope up to them and we're looking at them, I feel like what happens here is that they are trying to constantly be a tale of two companies, because I think by saying something and saying we want to continue to ship this game on PlayStation so long as PlayStation players want to play it, it's meant to imply that they're the gamer's friend, and we are just in this for the benefit. Yeah. Excuse me, the benefit of gaming.
Oh, gross.
Man, hey, listen, I ate a mega chimichanga before we came on the show, and it was delicious. But it's coming back around, guys, as it always does.
Round 2, fight.
That's a fight that I don't think I want to lose. But he says that, and this is where I feel like Microsoft is constantly trying to use PR speak in their benefit. And Sony's been here before as well, definitely throughout the PS3 days and PS4 generation, even to an extent, of wanting to say what sounds the best to the overall market, but then constantly working against it with things that you're doing. Because if you really want to, you're portraying and implying that you want to be the friend of the gamers. But at the same time, you're going, yeah, but Fallout and Elder Scrolls, two beloved series that have a long history on PlayStation, are just absolutely not coming. And that's completely okay. But be consistent in what you're saying, and just if your actual answer is, listen, this deal is so important to go through that even though we want Call of Duty to be exclusive, because who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Or I say who wouldn't. Maybe they actually don't, because they stand to make way more money as a multi-platform game, it would imagine. But still, if their actual answer here was the real truth of King is genuinely the more important thing here, fuck Call of Duty. We don't care. I would put Forever in a contract if it meant I got King, if that's how important you truly think King is. But instead,
if you can't operate
PR
as
speak.
Yeah.
So what's y'all's thoughts on that in terms of them on one side of their mouth saying that they want to let players play on the systems that they want to play on, and then simultaneously being like, but also only on things that Game Pass is available on?
Kyle, I'll let you take it because I've talked too much.
I do feel, because I reading this article and seeing that whole $1 billion deal was just to get King. Yeah. Part of me is just like, this is just another excuse to kind of skew the conversation.
Sure. They're trying to.
I also don't think it's wrong though.
Oh, no. I also don't think it's wrong. Candy Crush makes a ton of money still.
Yeah,
I
think you're seeing how
it's bigger than Call of Duty.
Oh, absolutely,
1,000%.
Yeah,
but part of me, when I saw this, just because we hate fanboyism. Part of me loves the fact that people are generally upset that the head of Xbox said, no, Call of Duty wasn't the reason. The mobile game Candy Crush that your mom plays, that's why we bought it.
Yeah.
Gamers hate some very weird weird satisfaction I got from seeing that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you toxic fanboys.
But
there you go.
Gatekeeping, it comes back to bite you eventually.
Absolutely.
No core gamer wants to hear that a company is making an investment for mobile gaming. How dare they? But go ahead, Joe.
No. But like, honestly, dude, like you're seeing what $1 trillion company does in terms of making moves to lay down its foundation or to build that foundation. You're seeing everybody move into the mobile space and make those moves. You know, you saw like
including
2K
Sony.
Buy Zynga, and you're seeing Sony build something seemingly
not Sabotage. What was the mobile studio they bought?
Savage.
There you go. Thank you.
So like you're seeing them build and buy smaller studios to help build something for them, and now that's what you're seeing Microsoft do. But what $1 trillion company can do, which is buy billions of dollars of a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, there's also a part of me that laughs just outwardly at my phone when I see people go, yeah, I wrote to the CMA because you know what? This is ridiculous. It's like, really?
Oh my God.
Really, guys?
I've seen
either
that,
for
like,
or
guys,
against.
They've got you. They've got you by the goat. If you care so much that you're writing to the CMA, I hate when people say this, but I have to actually agree for once. Go outside, take a handful of grass, and just pet it.
Just hold on.
Touch the grass.
Please.
Yeah.
Exist in the real world for a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah, I have that same feeling when I see people do like a petition for like
a change.org.
Bring back the McRib all year long.
Yeah.
Like, come on, relax. It's
not
that serious.
That's not rib. That's a sofa cushion, and you know it. Like, by the way, my brother, slight tangent. He's like, hey, Joe, you want to go to McDonald's? It's the last day you get the McRib. And I'm like, absolutely not.
I have lived my entire life without eating a McRib, and I will
Same.
gladly continue to do so.
Same.
I felt gross when I had one because it's just what.
Wait, so you actually went and got one?
No.
Okay.
I didn't
talk, and you still did.
No, I wouldn't drop a and not mean it. I would. I stand fast. No, this is like a few years back. I had it, and it's just like the idea of what they think meat would look like, slathered in what they believe barbecue sauce is, a couple of their onions, which are delicious, and then pickles for some reason, and then just threw an idea of bread, because none of that's real.
Dude, the fact that they wanted to pretend with a mold that there are bones in that meat is so bold. That is the most bold move ever.
And honestly, it's like, bravo, because you like someone in the market would be like, you know what, this be real more believable, like if we just molded the meat to look like there was bone. This would be,
and it's worked for years,
and it worked. Oh my God.
Quick aside before we go to the next story, Joe. You brought up your brother. I want to ask his journey through Last of Us Part 2.
Ooh.
Is he any further?
I don't know. I will get an update.
Because Brett, I don't know if you know, he just, because of the HBO trailer for the show, Joe's brother wanted to play Last of Us Part 1 for the very first time and fell in love with it, and then immediately went into Part 2. So I'm very curious how he feels.
I love this idea. I want to hear this too. Please keep me in the loop, because I love the idea of someone who has no years of waiting, no years of expectation building, who just goes from the first game to the second game. And if they have all of that, what I am going to truly say is what's incessant whining about ridiculous things. The Last of Us Part 2 is not a perfect game. It has pacing issues in the way they chose to write the story and enact it. But I think that the core of that game is honestly fantastic. And it approaches something so close to being amazing, and in many ways is amazing, that I can forgive it a few odd pacing choices. I think that you could basically just reshuffle that game and make a game that feels more cohesive and works better. But I still understand the choice that they were making. And the gameplay, second to none. The Last of Us Part 2 is probably the best third-person shooter I have ever played. It's so satisfying.
It's so
that
good.
combat is...
Honestly, it's so awesome to sit there and watch him and be like, and like him going through it. Like, you know, there's a part in Last of Us Part 1, and I won't spoil it because it's new to some folks out there, where there's a choice that you don't get to make. And my brother was just like, wow, I did not like that. There has to be he's like, there has to be some type of like repercussion. Like that person must have been important. and I'm like, oh, wait till you see.
I love that that's an exact opposite. Like it's perfect contrast to what people online are saying. Some nobody.
Yeah.
No, it's okay for you to look and say, no, this was an important person. It just didn't matter to the story of the first game.
Yeah. It's nuts. But yeah, you love to see it. That said, Kyle, it's time for the next and final bit of major news here.
Oh, I'm so excited.
This is for
Mac
you. I thought of you,
Ashworth.
brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Mac Ashworth, PS Lifestyle writes, Control 2 in development for PS5 will be bigger budget. Remedy Entertainment has revealed that it has signed a co-development and co-publishing agreement with 505 Games for Control 2, a quote-unquote full-blown sequel to the original release. Control 2 had previously been known as codename Heron. It is to be a bigger budget Control game. Control 2 confirmed to be in development with 505 Games as co-publisher. The deal between Remedy and 505 was confirmed in a press release. The piece explains how Control 2's initial development budget is 50 million. Is that euros?
Yep, euros.
Yeah.
And that it will be built using Remedy's proprietary Northlight engine and tools. Control 2 will be targeting current gen hardware, including PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. 505 Games will publish Control 2 on PS5 and Xbox Series, while Remedy will publish the game on PC. Neither PS4 nor Xbox One are mentioned in the press release, which likely means that the game is being developed exclusively for current-gen systems. There's also no mention of a Nintendo Switch Cloud version, despite the first game being available in that way. Remedy Entertainment is also working on Alan Wake 2, though the developer canceled plans to show it off during the summer.
And they're also working on Max Payne remake.
And they're also working on that Control multiplayer game.
Ooh,
they got a lot of things in the oven.
Okay, Kyle. First and foremost, I love when you're like, is that euros? I could hear the audible sigh from our European
I'm so
listeners.
sorry. Every time it messes with my brain.
Yes,
listen, it's a Prussian franc, okay?
That's right. Get it right. That's a shilling, sir.
You just said that. It's already out the other ear. It's gone.
All right. So Clear Wings XYZ writes in, just like you can too if you join our Discord server. Hello, Joe and Kyle. I hope you're doing well. I'm excited. Oh, no Brett Killer Wings? No? All right.
It's okay.
You, I guess.
It's okay. Listen,
yeah.
I walk into your house. Do I shit in your house? No. I ask first.
That's right.
Okay.
And you go, can you have Febreze? It's about to be a situation.
Jimmy Chonga's coming back.
And we got no time. I'm excited for Stray's Game of the Year nomination. Oh, that's awesome. Congrats, and it's my choice so far. See, look at it. Not Yakin and Yuriam, brother.
Great game. I adored it.
It's great. Yeah, I planned it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. My question for the show is about Control sequel. What would you both like to see the most out of it? Thank you both.
Ooh.
Kyle, swinging this over to you, my friend, because you are... Control is your game of the year.
That was my game of the year of 2019 was Control. I loved it so very,
Mine
very
too.
much. Yeah. I just think what Remedy did with Control, specifically the old house, is special. And what I want from the sequel, it's weird because I feel like we've seen all of the oldest house, but on one other thought, we probably haven't seen any of it still. I feel like there's still so many levels to that, and the DLC kind of alludes to that. There's this whole other area to it.
There's a whole goddamn neighborhood.
I just want them to keep it weird.
Yeah.
That's really what I want. I want more really cool just altered items. I want to see more things of guys staring at a fridge because if he looks away or blinks, the fridge is going to kill him.
Yeah.
Those kind of weird things is what I want from it. And to expand on what I think is one of my favorite weapons in games,
the service weapon,
the service weapon, and give it more powers, give Jessie more powers, find more to do with her and her brother. Speak and do really cool things of the game ending, but not really, and that weird twist at the end.
Yeah,
it's just so cool. And the maze, oh my god,
yeah,
more moments like that is what I want.
Just give me a stable frame rate.
What a cool!
And I'm so happy no PS4 because there's no way the sequel would be running.
They blow up. What
the
say
fact
you,
that you want a Switch version for no, come on, the Switch would die immediately.
Stop.
Before we get too far off that, I want to go back to my other comment too. But
Sure.
I saw, if I'm not mistaken, Joe, did you kind of like roll your eyes at the of them talking about the Switch cloud version?
Absolutely.
Have either of you actually chosen to undertake a Switch game through
my internet here is not worth
Good
even
enough.
trying. So
I haven't either. I do have a Switch. I very, very seldom play it, and I don't really want to buy a game to stream it. So I would love to do like a demo, like they're doing for like Resident Evil 7.
I think there is one. I think there is one.
So I want to try it out of sheer curiosity because everything I saw about like Kingdom Hearts 3 stream or cloud streamed looked rough, and it's to the point where it's like, why would anyone want to put their game like that if that's the suboptimal way to play it? Like,
and the fact that there's
talked
no
about
Ethernet
Sonic
cord.
Frontiers earlier, and that game barely even runs on Switch.
I've heard. I've heard.
But like the fact that like the base model doesn't even have an Ethernet port, it's like, why would I? Why would I do that to myself? So no,
it's rough.
Absolutely.
But the other thing I was thinking about, I brought up Sonic, which I guess is a good segue into the fact that I don't know why, but I guess because I feel like most of my favorite Sonic games, and I don't know where y'all are, because I'm a Sonic fan who has been disconnected from the franchise for a long time because the games just miss and miss. You know, the meme that exists of I'm a Sonic fan, even we don't like the games.
I love that. That's great.
It is true. Like Sonic Mania was fantastic, but like the 3D Sonic games have stumbled so much. But one thing I've always felt like Sonic has consistently nailed, even in 3D games, has been soundtrack moments to level moments. And I always felt like the maze in Control felt like a Sonic Adventure 2 moment where you put the headphones on and it's just like hitting the streets on City Escape with that damn boom, 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 that bass line hitting you. Like, yes,
analogy.
fuck yes.
Yeah.
It's like, Sonic and music, they have a very ripe understanding, and Frontiers does not fail on that at all. There are some hype moments from music to gameplay stuff, and it is. But that I felt like Control nailed that aspect. I felt like this is a Sonic game for these 10 minutes that we're in this section, and it was super cool.
Yeah. I think I'll try Real talk, I think I'll try Frontiers out when it's like $20, but I don't want to give Sonic fans the benefit of the doubt ever, because y'all know what I think about Sonic. He should. Miles per hour is, again, I still can't get over it.
He just learned that is Tails' name.
Miles per hour.
Last week.
Really?
Yes, Tails miles per hour.
You gotta be out of your goddamn mind.
Dude. You know, there's so many of the reasons I love Kingdom Hearts is the reasons I love early Sonic, where it's just like over the top, earnest, but cliche and cheesy as hell friend moments. But those games can be great when they want to, but there's been so many years of not that. Sure. I would be very interested to hear you eventually touch onto Frontiers, because I have not liked a 3D Sonic game since Generations, which was 2010. And before that, I didn't like one since Sonic Adventure 2. Yeah. So, and looking at that, Frontiers is one of my favorite games of the year, and I never thought I would say that. 100%. Buying the game, I had that pit in my stomach of like, I think I'm going to regret buying this game. And then I started it, and I had to finish it because I was like, I can't put this down to play God of War right now. I have to finish this first.
Fair enough.
You and our good friend Mike, same thing. He did not want to play God of War until he platinum Frontiers, and sure enough,
I did that and then started it, and I had a fantastic time. It's not perfect, but man, is it a hell of a launching pad for something that could be perfect with the next entry.
Fair enough. Well, going back to a game that I actually respect, Control. Listen, I want, Control is how I fell in love with Remedy. I want to see them continue to build off this universe that they're making, because I feel like Remedy is building the video game equivalent of the MCU, and no one else is trying to do this, and they are the only ones that I feel like are, and building a clear path to what is sheer insanity that I just can't wait to see how it all uncovers and how it all interconnects. So to me, I'm so in on Control. I just want to see it have a bigger budget. I want to see it end on a good moment, rather what I felt was a rather rushed portion of that game. It felt like it ended abruptly. So giving them the tools they need, the time they need, and the money they need to make this game, go for it, have a ball, just make sure it runs at a stable frame rate. I'm begging for 30 at this point. Begging. Stable 30.
PS5 version was pretty great.
Yeah. All right, Kyle.
I felt like for the most part on Control though that you're right. There was a lot of the times I had frame rate issues where when I tried to pause it, and then coming out of pause was like reawakening the game.
my PlayStation 4 had like a seizure. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I was playing on PS4 Pro, so I don't know if that did impact a little bit more. I felt like for the most part the gameplay was solid until you tried pausing it, and then it's like the game had 20 seconds to catch back up. Yeah. But you're talking about budget and answering the question, which I know it wasn't technically asked to me, but in answering the question for what I want to see, it's such a hard question to answer because, like Kyle said, the game is so weird. And I've loved Remedy for a long time. Max Payne 1 and 2 are fantastic games. Yep. Alan Wake I didn't play until the remaster, and it's a really interesting and fun and quirky game that it's not perfect. Control is amazing, and the game that hardly anybody ever talks about, but Quantum Break is actually a super
I want to go back
game.
and try it. Yeah.
And it's a super fun idea that doesn't always hit, but there's something about swinging for the park and just barely missing that is so endearing that you fall in love with the games all over again. Yeah. So for me, Control, I almost struggle to want to answer the question because I want whatever mentality went into making Control to be alive and well in the room as they're making Control 2. And I don't necessarily know that budget changes anything outside of maybe ability to optimize. But Control is a beautiful game, striking art design. It looked gorgeous. If it ran a little bit better, I think it's among the best looking PS4 games out there just because it's so unique in its presentation. So one thing that you said, Kyle, though, is you're talking about the oldest house. And part of me, this is a thing I have with Spider-Man where like I run against at what point can you keep making sequels in the same place and not run against fatigue of the environment? And I'm not sure that Sonic is going to have that happen, but I think, or Spider-Man's going to have that happen. But I thought about that with Control. I was like, do I want to be back there, or do I want to see them take these ideas and brush them into the bigger world that the game hints at? You know, like we talk about the Other World event or whatever, the AWE or whatever it was, Altered World event that happens. So it's like, why don't we go to one of those and go to like Ground Zero and explore this on a wider scale where you're not restricted? But at the same time, the oldest house and the mechanics that allow it to be pretty much anything and everything is a really great starting point. I just don't want to be playing the game and feel like this just feels like Control DLC. If it's going to be a sequel, let's amp it up and let's find a way to keep the creativity, the charm, the energy, but also do something that feels unexplored.
Like their first DLC, which I forgot what the name of it was, but it was in
the Foundation, I believe.
Thank you.
That sounds right. Yeah.
It was in such a different looking locale, still in the oldest house, but like so unique and different enough, like with desert and rock formations and sunlight and natural shining gemstones everywhere. It's beautiful. So that's what I'm saying. Like there could be so much more to the house that we haven't seen that they know of.
Exactly.
With those kind of environments. But yeah, I'm with you. If we are just circling back to the same office rooms and hallways and the mail room again and stuff like that, like
all you got to do with that game to me is like all you got to do is open a door and it's something different. That's the beauty of it. So
the beauty of the design. Yeah.
To me, it's like, go for it. Real talk.
I was just saying before we move on, you can finish your point if you want, Joe.
I'm good.
Am I the only one amongst us three that are a little worried about how many things Remedy is working on at once?
Great question. That's 100%. Actually what I was going to go back to.
I'm so scared that they're straining themselves too much. In addition to, they did the Crossfire story, single player stuff. Alan Wake 2, the Control multiplayer, Control 2, all these other things. It's a lot of things that I don't know how to run a game dev studio. It just seems like a lot of real big budget, things going on at one time.
It's like how much of Remedy is actually working on
each thing,
and how much is this them, bringing out to a support studio somewhere is what comes to mind. But it is something like to take caution to, because they are working on a lot. They are a independent developer going from project to project, and it seems like they've expanded so much that it does worry me, because like if if these projects, you're right, it's a crossfire situation where they're here for the paycheck, that's going to hurt their reputation. It's going to tarnish it.
I also don't want to wait 4 years to play this game.
Also fair. Yeah.
Which it probably at this point is what it's going to be, but I don't know.
What say you, Brett? Are you a little nervous?
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a fair point and a fair worry in a time where we're hearing about there not being enough people in the industry. So you ask yourself, like, how are they scaling up? Are they scaling up internally? And if so, where are they getting that workforce from? If not, are they doing farming out to support studios? Yep. What are those support studios? What is their thing? Because the at the end of the day, the project will rest firmly on Remedy's reputation, and it will impact Remedy's reputation much, and at least in the public eye, much more than it will a support studio. So you want them to not fail at that point. But also Kyle's points about how long it's going to be, I feel like that's something that gaming is having to deal with. And we talked about Horizon and God of War earlier, and I think part of the reason that we were talking about coming in with expectations of known quantities, I think if we were still in the PS3 era of games being iterated on every 2 years as opposed to every 4 to 5, I think those expectations would be a lot less, because you don't have as much time to stretch and think, and games don't have as much time to change the landscape to where by the time you put the game out, everything's changed. It's like you can look at Horizon Forbidden West and you can be like, it's a great game and it's really good in a lot of areas, but in some ways it just feels like the perfected version of a 2017 game, but in 2022. And it's like the gaming landscape is different in 2022, and all you did was perfect what you did 5 years ago. And if you'd have done that in 2019, this is probably a very different conversation in a different game. And I don't know how I feel about God of War yet, but that same thing could be true for God of War, right? It is maybe if you were able to get Ragnarok out in 2 to 3 years as opposed to 4, what does that look like, and how does that impact that conversation? So in looking at Control, it's the same conversation of 4 years out from now, outside of the fact that it's already been 3 years since Control released. It's like, what expectations come with Control 2 that are going to be nigh impossible to hit? Kingdom Hearts 3 faced that exact issue because you're setting something up and taking too long to pay off.
You're making a great point, because our friend of the show, Ainsley Bowden of Seasoned Gaming, an old man who has dementia. Gosh, I'm sorry, it's just a lot out of my mind. He's having that problem with God of War right now. He's like, I think it's great, but like, it still feels like a 2018 game, and I feel like I feel like AAA games right now are moving so slowly forward. Where you're right, like this game, Horizon, great example, is great and all, but the landscape has moved so far ahead of it that this feels maybe a year or two behind, or what I've heard. I don't necessarily believe that, but like, or one of the critiques, but like, to me, I feel like that is a fair enough assessment, because it does feel like, AAA games are moving slowly, while these AA, while these indie or III games are coming out and truly pushing. I got a chimichanga I'm finding now. Truly pushing the medium.
We all have a chimichanga inside of us.
That's right, somewhere deep down. Are pushing the industry faster and faster. So, that's something to take into consideration. I think it goes back to what we were saying way long ago, which is, hey, at the end of the day, got to get our expectations in check of what we truly want, instead of this, well, you're right, like when you say nigh impossible task, at the end of the day, this is going to be more Control. Did you like Control? Good. Now we got to improve upon it so that it feels like it earns that sequel, and not so much it earns like, oh, this is just DLC. It's a weird balance that they're going to have to try to take. And Kyle, I think you're right too. The worry of like, they're balancing so much. How are you keeping it all in-house? Are you keeping it all in-house? What happens if one of these games doesn't hit? What happens if the other game doesn't hit? To me, I take a look at this going, well, at least they have income or revenue from different organizations feeding this. So like Alan Wake really does seem like this is the thing. This is theirs. While, Control, though they love it, is they're getting that money from 505, while they're getting money from 2K to go make, or in / Rockstar to make those Max Payne games. So they have they have room to breathe and room for error, but not much, I would say. That said, though, I don't want to get too long in the tooth.
Really quickly, I was wrong. There's 5 games in development. There's another code named Vanguard that they're also working on.
So wrap up real quick the point that I had about those games. I guess the best way to look at it is, you're right that we as players have to get our own expectations to check over what we want, but I think developers and publishers need to get in check what players want and make games that are more in line with that, so that what we want and what they make of what they think we want are closer to each other. Because there's a reason that Sonic Frontiers swept me off my feet, and it's because it is revolutionary for its series. There's a reason that Elden Ring knocked people off their feet. It's revolutionary. There's a reason why Horizon and God of War are both highly anticipated, but they have a little bit of, it didn't quite hit as well as I thought it would. And that happens because iteration will never feel as genuine and interesting as something that's carving new ground. And so, I mean, it's been 5 years since a Sonic game, and the last Sonic game was just more of what they'd been making before, and it crashed and burned. So to that end, expectations across industry and the consumers both need to come closer to a middle ground. And then hopefully we can get to where games get iterated on quicker, because I
mean, it's what Sean Layden said, right?
That's what I was about to bring up.
There you go. Like, Sean Layden's like, dude, development's taking way too long. We actually need to start making smaller experiences. We can't really shoot for 100 hours. We should really be shooting for like 20-hour experiences, because development is skyrocketing. This is the way to control the costs, and through that, the scope of these games. You know, we talk about like games like Ubisoft bloat. That we want to get away from that, have a tighter scope. So, yeah, no, I agree. I think we should all seek to be more like Sonic.
Oh boy!
All right, boys,
run with it.
That's a snippet. I'm going to take that and I'm going to say I have convinced someone that Sonic.
It's all a lie. It's time for Flash News. Gotta run. Gotta go fast. Gotta do that. Gotta run. All right.
Sonic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. You see, you go.
Sonic is life.
Sonic is love. Sonic is life. God damn it. Sony will reportedly offer 25% off of new PlayStation Plus subscriptions for Black Friday. So, y'all, if you haven't already subscribed to the new PlayStation Plus and you're thinking about subscribing to Premium for 25% less, probably don't. Still go for extra, because that's where you're going to get your bang for your buck.
Yep.
PlayStation has been working on NFTs and blockchain's technology. This comes from a Sony patent over from 2021. Let's say it all here right now. Ready? No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Don't do this.
Or
I'm there,
what NFTs should be stand for. No fucking thanks.
That's right.
Get him out.
Off.
I don't have a strong opinion on NFTs. I'm in the no thank you camp, because no one has been able to prove what their value is. So until they can do that, no thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm willing and open to the idea. But right now, when we're 2 years into talking about NFTs and no one has any fucking clue what they are or what their value is, you've done nothing. If it's that slow moving of a technology, you should have never announced it to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. I say that there are applications for NFTs to be used for, like documents, like titles, car licenses, all that stuff. That makes sense. But to be like, here, we made a special little helmet and it has a little barcode. Give me $15 is.
But Joe, it's non-fungible.
I know. What's fungible?
That's my question.
That's my question.
What is fungible?
We need to stop worrying about that and worry about what the story is in Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, our priorities are a little messed up there.
I'm telling you.
Witcher 3 PS5 Enhanced Edition arrives on December 14th, 2022.
Quick fire. What's y'all's thoughts on The Witcher 3?
I have gotten halfway through of it. I loved it, but I forget the reason why I stopped. I will be going back to this game. Actually, there's a question later on. Trust me.
I started it at the end of the PS4 era, before PS5.
Yep.
I maybe got 8-9 hours in, and I was like, there's probably going to be a next gen version.
Yeah.
You
were right.
Exactly.
And last but not least, I'll edit this one down a little bit. God of War Ragnarok launch was bigger than Call of Duty, Elden Ring, and Pokemon in the UK boxed charts. This comes out of Christopher Dring in gamesindustry.biz. holy crow. It actually dethroned Call of Duty this week to take the mantle of number one. 12% of all PS5 God of War sales came from the bundle, and 82% of God of War Ragnarok copies sold were on PS5, 18% on PS4. This is huge.
Wild.
This
Wild.
I'm surprised as of this podcast, Sony has not bragged about numbers, because this definitely does seem like this is probably their biggest launch.
Double-edged sword, though.
Okay.
By talking about this, optics come into play, because in many ways, this, not to say it's right or wrong, but this in many ways down talks the need for cross-gen, at least in terms of so far as we're seeing. This much of a split is genuinely surprised. I really thought it was going to be much closer to like a 60-40.
Absolutely. Same with the Maricopa County joke from earlier. It really does. The need for cross, like, honestly, I mean, we even saw it with Horizon, though I think that's a little bit more skewed because of the bundles, but like, yeah, I think it's time we can drop PS4. We could go solely into this next gen and truly embrace the tech, because it seems like people are just waiting for PS5s to go get these games.
Been a good year been a good few months for them to finally start doing that.
Yeah.
But to play devil's advocate real quick, while I do look at these numbers and go, wow, one thing to note is that this is opening week sales. So these are core gamers who are going day one and doing this. God of War's 20 million sold was not built off the back of only core gamers.
Sure.
It was built slowly but surely over people as it went on sale, and people heard good word of mouth. And to that extent, these numbers are not painting a true picture. The people who are still on PS4, who are probably not as into what's happening at the, they don't have FOMO they're worried about. We're probably going to see that number skew more towards a true thing, but this is starting to make me believe that what we're going to see is more of a 70-30 than a 50-50 or 60-40. And that's still rather impressive that many people are moving and playing this on PS5, if that holds true.
Absolutely.
Also,
and just boxing.
Next week's Black Friday.
Yeah.
Holiday season's right around the corner. That number's going to jump big time.
Ooh-wee. Yeah. All right. Now, Brett, are you holding on to something? Kyle, are you holding on to something?
Always.
Okay.
Always, yes.
Prepare the drop. Here are the latest steals and deals coming to the PlayStation storefront. November 15th. Do not open on PS5.
I'm going to do it.
Don't you dare.
I'm going to do it.
Also on PS5. What is this? Inertial Drift on PS5. That sounds like a hernia. Rockito. Ooh, a little Spanish rocket. I vibe with this. On PS5, PS4. Siberia. Jeez, it's cold. Siberia, The World Before on PS5. TMNT, Shredder's Revenge, wait for it, on PS5. This is the PlayStation 5 version of this game. Okay. Yeez. Oh, God.
Lacrimosa of Dana.
God damn. Thank you, Brett, coming in for the save like that.
Really quickly, Joe, Inertial Drift, arcade racer that is very well received.
Oh.
4K, 120 FPS modes.
Ooh, okay, that, you got me on 120 FPS. November 16th, Call of Duty Warzone 2.0 on PS5, PS4. Cannot wait to jump in. Oh, I cannot wait. My loins are tight. Finding the Soul Orb on PS4. Super Chicken Jump on PS5. Kyle, you see this?
Yeah, what about it?
Cheap Platinum. 17th of November, Goat Simulator 3 on PS5. My Fantastic Ranch on PS5. And Star Sand on PS5. On November 18th, Adventure Academia, The Fractured Continent on PS4. And the Dark Pictures Anthology, The Devil in Me, in PS5, PS4. That does sound like a Dr. Phil segment. Right? My daughter's got the devil in me.
Going back to finding the Soul Orb.
You're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Wait, Brett, I'm sorry. I'm gonna cut you off. How is that Texan accent? How is that like that Southern drawl that I just did? The devil in me. How is it good?
You sound like you come out of a movie, which is great because there is a section around here that sounds like that.
All right, Brett, hold on to your pants here. I got another one, okay? By God, how do you like this Arthur Morgan accent right here? I'm going to say something like My Fantastic Ranch on PS5. Star Sand on PS5. How did you like that voice?
It's solid, but I would not have guessed Arthur Morgan. I would have thought like man from like Kentucky or like, you know, like you're not pulling that vibe in particular from me, but I still is it solid voice.
Solid, right? You wouldn't give us a 2-star review saying that that's a bad voice. You would say that that's a bad review.
Well, here's the thing. You didn't have enough. You got to have a little more
gruff
in your voice.
Look, I can't
Damn it, Dutch. You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
You got to throw it in there.
All right.
You're leading me down the wrong path, Dutch.
Damn. Now, if they have a complaint about that accent, then you have a complaint about the South. Personally,
Well,
I
it's
give
just
that 2-star review.
I wouldn't have put it in the Texas area. You know, Red Dead 2 specifically takes place around actually not far from where I live. Like you know,
really?
as Texas goes into Mexico.
Sure.
So,
but
yeah,
still, like solid
say,
as you know, a carpetbagger as I am.
Oh, well, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. Cool.
I have a question for you
so
regarding
do you think
accents.
that review,
my everyday
whoever
accent,
sent that review was full of shit? You think? Because that was a good
full of shit.
Yeah, thank you.
Full of shit. You got this in the bag. How does my accent? Because I, of course, like to live in this bubble where I live in the South, and I don't ever think about the fact that I feel like I don't have at least a strong Southern accent.
Yeah.
In talking to me, do you feel like I have Southern drawl at all?
Oh yeah,
Or
you
at least
definitely do.
Very notable.
It's notable, but like it's not distracting. Like I don't think I have a Jersey accent. And when I go, you think I have a Jersey accent? You guy. That's what I'd say. Forget about it. I don't do that. No one. But I say coffee, and people think that's weird. They say it's coffee. Like I can't even do it.
That sounds like a Boston accent. Coffee.
It's like the it's kind of like the nor'easter thing, but like how
water.
We say, water.
Look, we call it coffee.
Yeah, it sounds normal to me. Water, coffee. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you what we do deal with down here. There are people that call, I don't know if you have them around. I know that they're very predominantly Southern, but have you all ever heard of Whataburger?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Okay. It's very big around here, but a very large contingent of people call it Waterburger. I would go down the street and get me some Whataburger. And I'm like, it's what a burger.
What a burger.
What a burger.
Yep.
Waterburger. Wow.
Water, yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
If I were to ask both of you, to describe what do you think the game Finding the Soul Orb is about? What do you think that game's about?
I think that what you do is you find the soul orb.
Oh God!
What if I told you it's a medieval fantasy game where you use your crossbow as both a weapon against werewolves as well as a tool to solve puzzles? Is that what you thought this game would have been?
No, but that actually doesn't sound as bad as the name would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeez Louise. All right,
is that the back of the box read?
That's the Steam description.
Yeah. It's time for our favorite segment and the last segment of the show, the Sony Pony Express.
Yeehaw!
Oh yeah,
you did yeehaw! How dare you?
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having too much fun this episode. I'm really having legitimately a great time. All right, everybody.
I'm offended. I just want you to know.
Fair enough. Sony Pony
I'm technically
Express.
an Arkansan. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, good.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. We all say yeehaw. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Yeehaw!
That's right. Suck a 2-star review guy. Una writes in, hey there, guys. Hope you 3 are doing well. My question this week is, what series have you enjoyed when playing? This past week, I finished Tales from Zero, hopped right back into a Tales game on my list to play before getting to Kuro and Kisake.
Kuro no Kiseki.
Gotcha. And seeing Aaron. Oh my God, Una, the thirst is real. And I noticed that I'm always smiling or just sitting in pure joy when I'm playing. And with the limited time for myself with school and in real life stuff happening, it's exactly what I need in gaming to always get me hyped. I throw the ball over to you guys. What series always puts a smile on your face? What's the series always, we're talking about it, Bloodborne, game of the generation.
Hold on. She said series.
Okay.
That's a game. Come on.
it's a series in my heart.
You've never heard of the Soulsborne series?
Yeah, the Soulsborne, the genre.
I'm just giving him shit.
Yeah. So I think they're talking about the Trails games, and I've actually never played any of them. I remember they were big. They started on PSP, and I was as a poor kid, and I don't live this way now, but as a poor kid, I got a PSP and figured out how to mod it. And so I was able to game, and I played very heavily on the PSP. And I know that was one of the series that came from that and then on the Vita, but never gotten around to playing with them. But if y'all don't mind me jumping in and answering first, I have a very easy answer. It's something that's tied to nostalgia and just friendships I've made and the games themselves. The Kingdom Hearts series never fails to, even at its worst, I just love it. There's something about how corny
it's at its best. When's it at its best?
Oh
man. That's at its best, buddy. No, dude, Kingdom Hearts 1,
Kingdom Hearts 2
Birth by Sleep. Yeah. Dude, all of those games, even Kingdom Hearts 3, which takes a lot of odd steps for a series in trying to resolve a very large built arc.
Yeah,
I still couldn't help but just it's not my favorite Kingdom Hearts game by a mile. It's the Kingdom Hearts game I would be the least likely to replay ahead of all the other ones. It would be the last I'd replay. I still loved it, and the entire time I was playing it, having those years of payoff from that game alone. And my ability to throw on Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Birth by Sleep, any of those games, and just, I love them. It's a childlike joy that awakens inside of me. Fair. And it's one of the only announcements when they announced Kingdom Hearts 3 at that, the E3 or whatever it was. I felt my heart like palpitate. I felt it like stop, and I couldn't breathe for a second. And I thought, of course, I'm an adult. I was like 19 at the time or whatever. I was like, this is a little too much. I probably not need to be, but that excitement, that true excitement that can catch you that way, it's a nice joy. It reminds you that the world's not as bad as it's sometimes real easy to. You get into the milieu of day-to-day life, and Kingdom Hearts is that joy for me. It brings back that side of me, and while I'm playing it, I'm just in a great mood.
Yeah. For me, it is Soulsborne, man. Like that genre. I know I'm cheating a little bit, but like there's just something about it where I'm just getting lost in those worlds. Bloodborne is my happy place. I say this a lot, and people are like, what? Like we went to Extra Life. We raised $9,000. Humble brag. Team Carpool Gaming. Mostly Sean. I was just there to just mock him, but like there was a big projector screen. I was just like, I need to get Bloodborne on that projector screen, and I legitimately played 30 minutes of Bloodborne, and I just tuned out the entire world. And just like that, and I did everything flawlessly, you know.
I love how that is your retelling of what was supposed to happen. We were supposed to co-op the DLC, and you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to play on the big screen.
I have other. You see, when you have a big screen,
Kyle, whatever, it's fine.
Kyle, if I had to choose, real talk, if I had to choose you in a like 300-inch projector, sorry, bud, 300-inch projector.
Yeah, you're about 294 inches short.
Yeah. Sorry, bud. Kyle, what's your happy place? Also, real talk, most Nintendo stuff really does. Like Mario is a happy place. Like that's a great series to just get lost into.
I have a quick confession.
Go for it.
I don't like Mario. I don't hate it by any means, but I've never liked a Mario game. I've tried, and it's never clicked.
Hey, fair enough. Sonic.
That's why when people say they don't like Sonic, I'm like, I get it. I don't like one of the most popular things, but that's fine. Hey, real quick, while you're talking about your Soulsborne games, did you get around, maybe even prior, but have you played Demon Souls?
Oh yes, I would have the platinum in that, but like the world tendency thing is
awful,
and I just can't get it. I just can't get it to work. So I've given up.
I hate it. Did you play the PS3 version, or did you come around to it with the remake?
PS5, yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, both are great, but the PS5 version is hands down the best way to play that game.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kyle, happy place.
Final Fantasy is easily my answer for series. It's
beautiful.
Was my go-to PS1 remake part 1. I wept just in awe of how great that game is.
Great series.
Honestly, I'm finding myself smiling a ton with God of War Ragnarok. I know it's weird because it's like a serious in tone, but there are so many cool moments that are happening that I can't help myself but smile. Yeah. Reading the collectibles and like, this is cool. Or hearing the Mimir story is just a huge smile on my face, the character interacting. It's everything I want. But another one is Uncharted. If I were to pick a PlayStation series, it's Uncharted. Just a good old time, with Nate and Sully. Just
I find that joy really comes. Joy is very intrinsically linked with nostalgia, and I find myself in God of War Ragnarok specifically. I find myself having those kinds of like really joyful moments when the game is talking about the history, like when it's mentioning things from like Demos or Calliope, and I'm like, yes. And that was some of my favorite moments of 2018 as well, where it's like you're having those moments. Like it's there's something about the dopamine hit when you're like, yeah, the game is not forgetting what came before.
When you hear enemies just drop, you're the ghost of Sparta I've been hearing about. I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
How do you know? My Tainted Brain writes in. So if you guys had the opportunity to voice one game character, which character would it be? Real fast. One game character.
It'd be Clank.
Ratchet. Oh, that'd be good.
I love it. Oh, I love it. What about you,
Ratchet. Brett? Up until Christopher Judge decided to come in and make Kratos basically impossible. I love the T. Carson voice acting, and I used to constantly be like, Zeus. And I love that voice. It's so fun to be like, your son has returned. It's a super fun voice.
That's a good one.
And I'm really glad that I feel like Christopher Judge, while having a very distinct voice, he does sound like an older, wiser T.C. Carson. Like I can hear the connection, and I love that they were able to change the voice actor without coming to a point where it feels like it's changing the character. Because Sonic Frontiers has got Roger Craig Smith as
I've heard he
Sonic.
Sounds like an old man.
He's fine, but I recently replayed Adventure 2 where it had the original voice actor. I can't think of his name right now, but I love him. He's got this cockiness to him in the original games, and the new one eventually grew on me, but it took a long time for me to kind of get used to that because Generations is the only other time I'd played one with him. So voice actors play a real pivotal part, but I love Kratos and just busting out those lines, I bring with me the destruction of Olympus. It's awesome.
That's excellent. I think I could rock a Mario. Are you guys ready to hear this?
Let's go.
Right.
Oh no.
Hey, where's the Gabagoo?
That's classic Italian right there.
I'm going for a Chris Pratt,
Not only have you ruined Nintendo fans, just Italian people in general.
That's fair. Why not offend multiple?
I'm pretty sure Nintendo's going to call you up and be like, guys, hey, can we get you to quickly revoice Mario in this movie?
Yeah. Miyamoto's like, yo, I heard the trophy room and you nailed it.
That's what we were looking for with Chris Pratt, but just
I called my friend Michelangelo. I go, guy's nailing it. That's a callback prior to the show. All right.
Crash Bandicoot would also be fun. Nothing like a whoa. That's classic PlayStation love.
That's right. Kevin Ainsworth writes in, hello, everyone. As someone who's wrapped up God of War this week after 25 hours, I'm doing a good amount of side content, and I'm left disappointed by the story. How dare you? That isn't to say that I didn't like the game, but I walked away feeling not every question from 2018 was answered. Well, come to find out that some answers are sprinkled in the side quests after the game. This annoys me a lot, and no spoilers, but in my opinion, having what I consider vital story beats and explanations hidden in optional side content is poor design. Curious on what your thoughts are. I have not done all the side content. I've done a lot of it. And I can't, honestly, I can't go into detail, but I disagree on some aspects of like vital story beats. Like, I understand where you're coming at with, I think, a certain side character, and no spoilers, but like their side quests are very much mirrored to like Ghost of Tsushima. So you're really getting what you're putting into it. And I don't mind that one bit. So to me, no, I like that I could choose to explore certain characters or not to. explore them. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
I kind of like that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, and the game actively gives you points to be like, hey, we don't have to go do this thing right now.
Yeah, because I feel like I cheated myself a lot.
Let's give this person a little bit of space. Let's go do our own thing for a little bit.
Because I feel like I cheated myself on 2018 because I feel like I did something prior where I was just like, the story got so good, or I was just like, I'm just forgot the side content. I just want to go in front, and I feel like I did myself dirty there. But that's me, and not so much the game. I feel. Brett, what say you?
You were talking about Ghost of Tsushima and how they kind of approached pulling in side content where, like, you spend time with a character and you work through their story and you work with them. And in a weird way, God of War is doing that by tying characters to realms in many of ways, and letting you go back and operate within that. And I do like that. Because I've not finished it, Kevin, I'm not going to say too much either outside of this, but I think I kind of feel what you're feeling, at least insofar as I've played, but I still have a lot of room for that opinion to change. So what I will say is that right now, that I do find myself at times feeling like, Joe, you said the game is dense, and I think that's really a great way to put it. The problem with that denseness is that sometimes the denseness and the need to exposit and give you certain story elements and make things happen come at the point of pulling you out of the gameplay and creating very boring gameplay experiences. And there's one particular section where my buddy timed it, and I know I felt the same way. And we were talking at work today.
I know exactly what point you're talking about.
And he was like, didn't it feel like it was just you pushing an analog stick forward?
God
I was
bless.
like, yes, exactly what it felt like.
Yes.
And it felt like as cool as what I was learning was, I never felt like, who designed this and thought it was fun from a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, I do feel like there's some issues where the game is dense, but I don't always feel like it's using its time well. And I get that that's a really hard balance to strike, and there's also a really hard balance to strike of what is vital and what's not, and when to put it in the main story that's already so dense. Do you want to make it more dense by putting more stuff as a mandatory thing that has to get out? It's a really odd tightrope balance, but I do feel like if by the end of the game, I'll agree with you, if by the end of the game I feel like some of the things I've had issues with, I will lean a little more towards the sign of at least less than stellar design in a particular aspect. But I do want to have more time with the game, and I know that being a designer of any aspect of a game is rough, and I know they had to make a lot of tough calls. But it is what it is. Right now, I'll say 2018 is still my preferred game of the two. Sure. But as I said to many people, and not saying I think it is, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say God of War Ragnarok happens to be the worst God of War game.
Yeah.
What is the problem with being the worst game of a fucking stellar series?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I get you.
I go for it. No, you're chopping us there.
I was just gonna say I want to use this as an example for what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Where, like, love what you love, even if you disagree with it, don't let it dissuade you. Yeah. I couldn't disagree with both of you more when it comes to that section in particular.
Oh, you know what section?
I loved every single second of that.
Oh.
Because I'm in it. I'm so immersed. I want to hear what they're talking about. I want to take it in.
Fair.
And I enjoy every single line and word. I'm like,
also
chopping at the bit for more. Yeah. But I also feel like that could also be because I am still so fresh from my replay of 2018.
Sure.
That I am so close to it that I'm just like, it's very much of watching previous Marvel movies leading up into a brand new one. Where I'm just like, I want to absorb every single second. Yeah. So I'm playing this as, if there's a side quest that comes up, I'm doing it immediately.
Yes.
I'm doing that too, just to be fair.
Everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's how I am with games anyway. But
for sure.
I think me coming off of Sonic, I do think is painting this a little bit, because Sonic is so
I hate how we're referencing Sonic so much.
I know.
It's painting me.
It's important to this because of the fact that God of War is a game that has a fantastic story and then really good gameplay that is really in service of the story.
Yeah.
And Sonic is flipping that on its head. It has really great gameplay and then a pretty good story for Sonic, but it's in service of funding more gameplay. Mm-hmm. And I even think at some point in time, God of War as a series was like that. But when you're coming off of something that's worried about making as much of the gameplay as fun as possible, as often as possible. Having 8 to 10 minutes where you feel like you're just pushing an analog stick coming right off of that
for
is
sure
jarring
I
at the
get
very
it.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think so in case of this point, again, we're off the beat here, but you're right. I think one of the problems with God of War Ragnarok is like the combat is so good that when you get to that portion of the game midway through, you're like, oof, can I just go back to like hitting things with my axe, please? Like I'm really in this. But
without saying too much, the combat for one particular leg of combat is surprisingly fun, and I feel like that section fights against letting me do more of that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
But it's also, it's just like, well, like Kojima will have a literal 30-minute cutscene after I just got past some BTs. So like there's some give and some take. It's just what you're expecting from that series. So for me, you know, I'm not coming off disappointed. I have this weird thing where I'm a Star Wars fan, so not every sequel has to be better than, you know, Empire, but there are movies that are better than Empire. Cough, cough, Rogue One. It's true. We can acknowledge it. It's okay.
So good.
But like, I could come off with a sequel of just being more of the thing I love, and that's what Ragnarok is to me. It's like more of the thing I love. So please give me more of this, and they are. And
at its worst, it's still that. Yeah,
exactly. So to me, it's just like it's stellar, and I think again, you get what you put into it in terms of the side content. Is truly special. It is some of the best side quests I've ever played in a game. So to me, yeah, I am feasting on this game right now. I can't get enough. But there are
also,
some
Kevin,
misgivings.
Totally cool that how you felt about it.
It's not.
That's cool.
No, how dare you?
It's fine.
Drellish writes in. European greetings, gents. My question this week is simple. What game will you be playing between the Christmas and January time this year? And will it be influenced by the Game of the Year poll results? Funny enough, he says, love the show, keep it up. Funny enough, since I've played all the things on the Game of the Year list for the most part, it won't be... Oh,
you got that Xenoblade under your belt?
I'm good. No thanks. No. That being said, Witcher 3, and I think Gotham Knights will be my games. What say you guys?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, Brett passed it. Go for it. Yeah, Kyle.
Probably. No, I'm gonna play that on release. I was gonna say Midnight Suns, but I'm playing that as soon as possible.
Fair.
Yeah, probably going back to Gotham Knights. Going to, as much as I wanted to play it before our Trophy Room awards, like Ghostwire, games I missed. I want to get back and actually finish Horizon. Actually make another attempt after the update of Sifu. Like there's a lot that came out that I want to give another shot to.
What say you?
Ghostwire is a very interesting game. I think you should get around to that because when you look at what makes Control interesting and unique, Ghostwire is not a perfect game, and it's not even going to come up in the Game of the Year. But it's an experience I had this year that it just felt like it was unique and charming enough that it felt like this is not something you get to play very often.
Yeah, that's why I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah. To answer the question specifically of whether or not the Game of the Year poll results will influence me, no, I don't see that happening. There's always a possibility. But that's also because, as we were kind of talking about, with the fact that there are so many games that we've not been able to play and some that I think are very likely to end up on my list from what I've seen and heard, we're opting, and we're kind of discussing it. We were talking about how, like y'all mentioned earlier, the deadlines really create issues with both recency bias, because games that come out immediately after the deadline are almost always completely missing from the Game Awards nominations, whether they were great or not. Because it's like they're so old and they're still technically in 22 sometimes, or so early in 22, or they were the year before. So where you start to associate them with that previous year and they don't really occupy your mind the same way. So what we're personally doing for our show, we used to do it where our last episode of the year was always our awards.
Yeah.
And we're internally discussing, because we want more time and we want deadlines to not have to be an issue. We're discussing doing a calendar year where we really look at games that only came out in 2022, and we do not do the episode until like the second or third week of January, where we have a little bit more time to play things. And because I'm a huge racing game fan, if Gran Turismo 7 didn't make that obvious, but I also like non-sim racing games. So as much as I was worried, because I really liked Ghost Games' take on EA or on Need for Speed, I actually am incredibly excited about what I've seen so far for Need for Speed Unbound. So I can't wait to sink my teeth into that. And I want to be able to talk about that should it be that good in Game of the Year. So I think what I'll be playing is primarily going to be determined by what I want to catch up on to have an earnest discussion. And there's a very high chance that between Christmas and January, I might be playing Signalis and Cult of the Lamb and a couple of the indie games that have looked really promising that I just haven't gotten to. There might be a little more cleanup. I ended up playing Hot Wheels Unleashed or whatever it's called. It's
fun.
So good.
It's fun, dude.
Has no business being as good as it is, but it's charming and unique. And I know I've said charming a lot, but it just is. It's so novel. I had a blast. I started playing it. I played like 12 hours the day before Sonic, and I only played it for one day. I just was glued to it that day. I want to get back to it.
And that's the thing, like with our award show, because there are so many moving parts this year, we're trying to really build the foundation of something that is going to be, I think, pretty damn big in terms of what indie podcasts are going to be doing, that we have to give it a cutoff. And I will be talking to folks behind the scenes of games that could be coming close, that could be considered in certain categories, that because we're maybe a day or two short won't be, there. But sadly, just because of how Twitter is right now, we honest to God don't know if the platform's going to be there in the next few weeks, as several warnings have been laid out in front of us. So it's like, okay, well, do we strike while the iron is still there exists, because we want to get as many eyes as possible on it. And so that's the hard thing that we find ourselves in, because we want to get as many people engaging with this as possible. And at the same exact time, so many people that we'll be talking to throughout the month of December, that it's like our voting's going to probably begin in December, and it's going to probably end early January, and the episode will probably be out in, like mid-January too. So like, honestly, in actuality, I'll probably be editing this award show together during that Christmas break. It's going to be very intensive. So again, patreon.com/PS Review makes all that possible.
So Joe, as you kind of say, I think we come back to that idea of where even at the level of, being enthusiast as we are, I think you just kind of brushed against what we talked about earlier, where we use this platform and our platforms under the podcast to be our ability to express our love for the art. But that does come with the feeling of that you want to make sure that you're investing your time in something that you find worth it and that people are being able to engage with. And therein creeps the business aspect.
Yeah.
To where, there's a part of you that's purist that goes, well, it shouldn't matter if Twitter's there or Twitter's not. But then there's the other side of you that's like, yeah, but you don't want to be screaming into a void. You want to work with people and talk with people and get eyes on the show. Yep. And that's not wrong. It's part of how it goes. So it's art fighting with business all over again.
Exactly. And really it is. But the one thing that we won't do is, of course, ignore the games that came out in December of 2021. Which we actually still didn't. We still had like games like Halo in our award show for like the best non-PlayStation game. So like for us, we're still able to keep that purity, but you're right. It is a balance that we're fighting right now, or trying to find the balance of, because it's difficult. We're always about transparency. Last award show kicked off some of the highest growth that we've seen of this podcast, because of the way that we were able to use social media for it. So like, if I'm going to be pouring probably like 8 hours into editing this thing,
you deserve to
people
get
see
something
it.
back out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's and congratulations, by the way, that y'all were able to grow. I mean, really, it's a very competitive scene, and your work deserves to be paid off. It's just we all have to be willing to acknowledge that every aspect of life has some level of business. Even we're just lucky that we're equipped to be handling it from an enthusiast first and a business second standpoint, to where we can grow and we can afford to do this without having to constantly dig in our own pockets and bankrupt yourself just to be able to talk about games. And it's so great that we have people who help support us do that. But it's a constant battle. Thankfully, we're just, when you're a small enough organization, it's a lot easier to fight that battle than it is when you're a very large one.
and you got to pay like people's like insurance and stuff. Thank goodness. All right.
There's less on the line for us.
Way less. So we got one last question here. I'm going to target here to Maximum Carnage. And they write in, greetings, Slanger and Banger, and special guest Slanger 2 and Banger 2. Maximum Carnage. Knock it off.
Nope, keep it coming.
Gentlemen, this week I platinumed the poo-poo garbage game known as Babylon's Fall. Love it.
Congratulations.
My trophy hunting hobby came at a price. The other day, the first time in about 5 years, my father decided to take a brief interest in my life and came into my room to see. I love that. What up, son? The hell are you doing here? All right.
It's the meme, are you winning, son, in real life?
Yeah. Are you winning, son?
I love it.
Yeah. I think
I'm playing Babylon's Fall.
Yeah, he's just like, you've never been more disappointed. Babylon's Fall? In my house? All right. I think even he, a 6-year-old man, understood what this game was and barely made 3 minutes before leaving. See, yeah, even he's just like, that wasn't far off. If only he had held off until today, where he would have seen me start playing my first playthrough of God of War 2018. Never mind, I plan to get him with the Last of Us TV show. Yeah. So my question, do you have a fond gaming memory that includes bonding with your parents? Or are there any games you think your parents would enjoy playing / watching? My mom is like my number one fan. She is so cute. She is very much like, are you winning yet, son? But she's like, you're winning, son. I love that. My favorite memory, y'all, I'll say it, so I'll give you both time. I was in Espanol, and my father and his brother were just like, video games, Joe, seriously? Come on, knock it off. And I go, okay, well, how about if I just show you a video game? Like what it is, because you're thinking it's about a bunch of beeps and boops, and I'm telling you there's something more here. And I showed them 20 minutes of The Last of Us, the opening, and my father finished with, so wait, that's a video game? Is there more? I'm like, absolutely there is. So that is the moment where he was just like, oh no, this isn't like, there's actually something here. And so shout out to my dad for giving me 20 minutes of his precious time that he could have been watching football. But, you know, that is one that's fond because he was in awe of what this medium actually is. Kyle, what say you?
Oh, I have a great memory of my mom, but first with my dad, he used to race drag racers for a living. So when well, not as a living,
you've told me this. This is great.
Amateur, I guess.
Yeah, as a hobby.
Yeah, thank you. So he, whenever there was a racing game, like, why am I blanking? Like in the old school NASCAR on PS1, like the old school ones, to have him play along with me and watch me play. Or he was also a big golfer, so playing like Tiger Woods back in the day. But when I got PSVR and I put him in the Drive Club VR demo that came on PlayStation World,
hell yes,
he was like, "Whoa, this is cool."
Yeah,
never got him to do it again, but that was there. But I don't know if I said it on this podcast. I know I've said it on others. I blame my mom for getting me into video games because there was a morning, I believe it was a morning, when I was real little, me coming down the stairs to her screaming at the TV playing Super Mario Brothers on NES and being so in it and yelling about the stupid princess that got captured and Mario trying to save the day, and me sitting next to her and watching her play. And I blame her for that. So every time she's like, "Oh, Kyle, you keep playing video games, girl," I was like, "Listen, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You're the one that got me into it. So who's laughing now?" So that's a memory that I cherish for sure.
There you go. Brett, I'll let you finish this off here. Favorite gaming memory.
Commenting real quick on your dad, I love that story. It's a great story, but I do think it's also important to note for anyone who may, and not that you're saying this, but for anybody who may be thinking about it, games don't have to be The Last of Us to be of value. And I know that you all, of course, agree with that. But the sad truth is that games like The Last of Us and Uncharted and God of War Ragnarok have an easier time selling the medium to people outside of it because for some reason it needs to be able to be taken serious before people can let their guard down and be like, no, Crash Bandicoot's just fun because you run and jump on fucking platforms and this dude with a giant head shoots stuff at you. They're all viable. It's just one's easier to tell the others. But I was real lucky. Go ahead.
One gets them through the door, right?
Yes.
So
and that's important.
And so they're just like, oh, wow, okay. And then from what my experience is, they'll see The Last of Us and be like, oh, whoa, okay. And then they're able to go and look at another game that is something, totally different, like a Mario or a Crash, but then you take like an indie game like Stray, or you take an indie game like Cult of the Lamb, and they're able to kind of go, oh, okay, so there's a spectrum here of what you can.
It plants a seed of intrigue that's very important for people who are not common to the industry, and any game can do that. Any game can, but there is gateway games, and The Last of Us, for as much as people think it does or does not deserve some of the awards it's gotten, it has been a magnificent and significant gateway game for a lot of people. So going back to fond memories of parents, though, I'm actually really lucky. A lot of my hobbies in life came from my father. And it's funny, Kyle, you talking about your dad being a drag racer. My dad, too, did that as a hobby. So a lot of my childhood memories are riding around in his drag truck that he would do. And it was, we'd be listening to Van Halen and stuff. So all of my musical taste comes from him, or at least I was introduced to it, and games, too. So he was a big gamer, and he still is to some degree, but as you get older and your skill fades, you fall a little bit. But the first console I ever got was my dad had passed us down after he got a PlayStation 1. He had passed us down the Sega Genesis. And the first game I ever played is this very niche game that hardly anyone knows called Chuck Rock 2 Son of Chuck.
Oh, hell yeah. I know Chuck Rock.
Yeah, and you play as a caveman baby.
Yeah.
And you run around with a big club and you can beat shit. And then I played a game called Boogerman, and I love Boogerman.
Yeah, Boogerman's great.
Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. Look it up if you haven't. It's amazing.
I own that cart somewhere in this house.
Dude, me too. You fart, and you can charge your fart up, and it can knock out goblins in the sewer, and you can flick boogers at them.
God damn.
It's amazing what games can be. But yeah, my dad was really into it, and he's, of course, a big racer person, so he's always loved racing games. He got us into this great PS1 game that some people know is actually the team that went on to become Polyphony for Gran Turismo. Yep. They made a game called Motortoon Grand Prix, and it's like a kart racer with a very animated art style where the cars have they morph and stuff based off what you're doing. It's an incredibly fun game. I play it all the time still. It's a PS1 class you can get on PS3. It's a great game and I love it. But my fond memory for my dad is it's tied into a sad memory. It was like right when my parents were getting a divorce.
Oh no!
My mom bought my dad a PS2 to try and save the marriage when they're in that part of it. Geez. It's they're all trying to do stuff for each other. So my mom got a PS2 for my dad. I woke up the day that happened, and I didn't know it was coming. But I woke up, I didn't feel well, so I had a fever. I fell asleep on the couch, and I ended up waking up to my dad, who was checking in on me. And after he made sure that I was good and checked my fever and that it was lower, he kind of looked at me, smiled, and then said, "I got the PS2." And I was like, "No way!" He was like, "You want to play with me?" And I remember we sat down, hooked up the PlayStation 2 together, and I was so hyped. It's even though I felt bad, when you're a kid, that high energy just pushes you way past that shit.
Sure.
And I got up, and we were doing that. And it's funny you brought up NASCAR because it was the blue back disc of NASCAR 2001. And we put it in, and me and him raced together. And I was young. Awesome. I was 5 or 6 when this happened. So my dad used to just let me turn around and go backwards and wreck people, or he would turn around, go backwards, and wreck everybody so I could win.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And I love that. I still talk to my dad about gaming to this day. He actually... he's super hyped for Gran Turismo 7, but he wants to wait until he can get a PS5 to play it because he doesn't want to play the lesser version. That's he, like me, has got the cockpit set up with a racing chair with an attachment for the wheel. So that paints my Gran Turismo 7 experience. I played the entire thing with a high dollar Logitech racing wheel and pedals. So I love that. I love when parents can take a second and look in, and even when my hobbies that were largely inspired by my dad and went well past him, with like my taste in music going way heavier than any of the rock he ever listened to. He's still very supportive and open to it. And I've gotten far more into games than I think he ever truly was, but he likes it. And we find joy in having that to talk with each other about. It is a great thing when your parents can come into something that is such a part of your life, like gaming is for me.
Absolutely.
And I think like that's like my mother is that supportive force with me, where my father is just like he's more passive. He's like, oh, you do you. Like my like one of the biggest moments with him was like he angrily bought us an N64, and then we needed a composite cable, because we had an old Mitsubishi TV, and I remember driving on Route 17 to that Toys R Us that now no longer exists, and just him ranting and raving.
Be careful, Joe. Assassinations are coming.
Oh, well, I mean, the assassination attempt, you missed it. You could have John Connored me, but you missed it. You had your shot. Well, no, now technically, I mean, time travel could be possible. Who knows? Yeah, who knows? But yeah, so if you want to assassinate or John Connor me, 2000, well, not 2000, 1996. It's a rough patch. My father's just trying to make the best of it. Again, Route 17 south. We were in traffic. It was a tan Ford Taurus. So make the best of it. Go for it. And don't miss.
Or I'll come back for you.
Exactly. I'll remember. But yeah, like him ranting and raving, like, this is the last video game thing I'm ever gonna buy you. And then cue the Always Sunny music of like, this is not the last thing this guy will buy his son. But yeah, that said, listen, this has been a long episode of the Trophy Room, but let me tell you something, one that I enjoyed so much, and I want to thank you, Brett, for being a part of it. Let everybody know where they can find you, to check you out. Take it away.
Oh, for sure. Well, I would like to quickly reciprocate that this has been a blast. I'm so glad that this was something that Sean One Neo, one of our, shared audience members, had put into a simple tweet about something he wanted to happen. We have a section called the Community's Take where we let people kind of give answers to questions that we pose. And that was one of the 5 headlines he wanted to see happen in 2023. And I'm happy to say that we were able to sneak it up into the 2022 year. So, and it's been a great time. I can't wait to have one of you guys, if not both of you guys, if y'all are down on our show, we'll gladly reciprocate that. We'll definitely talk on figuring that out. But if you want to listen to me talk more about games and my co-host Chris, you can find us at Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. Find us on YouTube in video format. You can find us on podcast services, wherever it is that you listen to it. Much like these guys, we have a Patreon. I'll tell you right now, y'all should go to patreon.com/PS Trophy Room. Give these guys some money, because they do a lot of work, and that has been incredibly obvious to me as I've been lucky enough to be a guest on here. And I like how you guys take this very seriously, but with a fun tone, which is exactly, it goes back to what we're talking about. It's for the love of the games, and it's been a great time. So thank you guys very much, but I'll give the show back to you. We hope you guys can come find us. If Twitter still exists, as they're worried about, we're at Triangle SQRD. That's right. Follow us if you liked what you heard. If you didn't, then hey, that's life. Go ahead.
And Elon will fire you. Or you can follow our Mastodon at Mastodon/server158, semicolon. Yikes.
It's friend codes all over again.
Oh my God, right? All right,
I'm glad someone else said it. Friend codes are the worst.
They're
worst. The worst. Kyle, is there anything you'd like to spotlight? Possibly your Friendster, because who knows what happened with Twitter in the next day.
My MySpace account. There's a new top 8.
Ooh. I'm hoping I'll get somewhere. I'm slotted in. Maybe 8. You think?
Absolutely.
I only know 8 people, Brett, and you're one of them.
Hey, Kyle, real talk. We're gonna have to talk music eventually. We're gonna have to talk music. Yeah.
All right, that works for me. I like to spotlight myself, Mr. K-Step everywhere. You can follow all the indie game news coverage that I do over at 61indie.com. That's SIXONEINDIE. IndieCast, wherever you listen to podcast services, all that jazz.
And you can find me over at Mr. Badbit over on Twitter. And I guess, who knows, rest in peace, Twitter. At PS Trophy Room. And
Joe's Tumblr, Mr. Badbit.
Yeah, and my OnlyFans as Mr.
You want more
Slutty
Kratos footage?
That's right.
OnlyFans is where it's at.
That's right. And guess
you can find me on footfinder.com, guys. Don't worry.
I was about to say, I share feed pics. And you can find us over. Why did I have to sing it like it was a jingle? Christ.
Made it way worse, but way better. I'm proud of you.
But wait how I transition this one. It's going to be glorious.
You Oprah'd it. You were like, I sell feed pics.
You get a feed pic. You get a toe. All right. And with all that said, and with all that out of the way, everybody, love y'all. Oh, wait, sorry. Captain Logan tried to raid this.
I don't know
how
what
dare
happened.
he?
I have no idea.
You'll find us over on Apple Podcasts, over on Google Play, wherever you get your podcast service of choice. If you like the mayhem today, please consider dropping us a 5-star review as we get closer and closer to 300 reviews, I believe, on Apple Podcasts. So it definitely helps us out. It grows this big, beautiful channel that we call home here at the Trophy Room. And find the video version, hopefully it works, over on YouTube. So with all that said, and with all that out of the way, everybody, keep your wits about you. Keep hunting and keep playing PlayStation. See you guys.
Bye. Love you.
Bye, guys.